Did this boy want to unify the whole realm and make the demon race and monster race submit to him? Just thinking so, Zhang Yuan's expression became stern. It wasn't that he was particularly small-minded. On the contrary, Zhang Yuan had a heroic spirit, similar to most demon race and monster race masters, but as the demon commander, he had to consider this possibility. Thunder Dragon was also thinking so. If this was the case, even if the demon and monster races joined forces, they wouldn't be able to resist, so they could only allow matters to take their course or face disaster. Hearing his question, Yang Kai glanced at him thoughtfully then smiled. Demon Commander Zhang doesn't need to worry. I won't be staying long. In fact, I'm afraid I will be departing quite soon. You'll be leaving soon? Zhang Yuan was taken aback, exchanging a glance with Thunder Dragon, both of them extremely surprised. Yang Kai didn't seem to have any ambitions of conquest. Yes, the wonders of the starfield are quite unforgettable, so I don't plan to remain here for long. Yang Kai laughed. Thunder Dragon's eyes lit up, and he asked quickly, is the starfield truly filled with such excitement? If so, can Holy Master Yang tell us about it? The other masters from the 3 clans also perked up their ears as they stared towards Yang Kai, listening carefully. Yes, please talk about it. This old master is also very curious. Chu Ling Xiao smiled and said, although he had heard much about the starfield from Ling Tai Su after he came here, this was still second-hand knowledge and lacked a certain flavor of realism. What Yang Kai had seen and heard with his own eyes and ears would naturally have a more profound weight, so now that Yang Kai was here, Chu Ling Xiao would naturally want to ask him about it. Since Martial Ancestor has asked, Disciple will naturally not refuse. Yang Kai chuckled. After pondering for a while, he began speaking. There are indeed many wonders in the star field, many things we have never even dreamed of before. Inside the hall, everyone listened with the utmost concentration. Time passed little by little, but no one's enthusiasm faded. On the contrary, their expressions only became more excited. The vastness of the star field amazed them again and again, and the talk of wondrous sceneries and abundant cultivation materials made them yearn greatly. Above the Saint Realm was the Saint King Realm, then the Origin Returning Realm, then the Origin King Realm, knowledge that made them blush with embarrassment. They fully understood the meaning of the words frog at the bottom of the well. According to Yang Kai, the world energy of most cultivation stars in the star field was extremely rich, and saints were nothing in such places. Only when one reached the Origin Returning Realm could they barely be counted as master, and only Origin Kings could be considered true powerhouses. Everyone's blood was burning as their eyes flashed with desire and hope. They longed to have such a cultivation environment and abundant cultivation materials. They were eager to go further on the martial Dao and become legendary Saint Kings, Origin Returning Realm Masters, and even Origin Kings. Yang Kai did not make any kind of embellishment or exaggeration in his descriptions, instead just calmly explaining what he had learned about the star field and what he had seen and heard over the decades. However, this was enough. After he finished speaking, everyone's mood had become chaotic and they were unable to calm themselves down for a long time. Yang Kai had seen all kinds of wonderful and magical things, but they had been stuck on Tongxian Realm, a place most star field cultivators would be completely indifferent to, using materials those cultivators would treat as garbage. This discovery made everyone depressed, ashamed, and even deeply embarrassed. Zhang Yuan and Thunder Dragon, who had just been at each other's throats before, now couldn't help exchanging a glance and laughing bitterly. Suddenly, they felt that their previous fight was naive and pointless. The star field is truly filled with wonders. This old master wishes he could take a look. If this old master could experience this kind of magical scene in his lifetime, he would be able to die without regrets. Chu Ling Xiao took a deep breath and declared. Thunder Dragon and Zhang Yuan also opened their mouths, seemingly wanting to say something, but in the end, they were unable to. Silence filled the hall for some time before Zhang Yuan sighed and asked in a somewhat depressed tone. Then dare I ask, Holy Master Yang, for what reason have you called the masters of the 3 clans here this time? Hearing his question, Thunder Dragon quickly turned his gaze to Yang Kai, also quite curious. Yang Kai smiled and responded, to lead you to the star field. A single stone thrown had sent out 1,000 waves. Everyone was clearly shaken by these words, and their eyes filled with excitement as they looked towards Yang Kai, as they had never expected him to say such a thing. It was undeniable that the previous descriptions Yang Kai had given them had aroused their yearning and curiosity towards the star field, and everyone present earnestly wished to experience it for themselves. But was the star field that easy to enter? They could not reach the star field, so they could only dream about it while envying Yang Kai's opportunity and admiring his courage and strength. But now, Yang Kai had actually extended an open invitation to them. Everyone was stunned. Of course, I won't force any of you, this is only a proposition. I will be leaving after some time, and those who are willing to follow me can. As for those who are unwilling, they can remain. I came back specially for this purpose. Yang Kai added. Is that true? Zhang Yuan stood up abruptly as he stared at Yang Kai with scorching eyes. Holy Master Yang, you're not joking, right? Thunder Dragon also asked incredulously. Although they didn't know exactly how difficult it was to bring someone into the star field, it definitely wouldn't be easy. If Yang Kai had such ability, he would give priority to his relatives and friends from the human race, but now he was making an offer to the demon and monster races as well. Both Zhang Yuan and Thunder Dragon couldn't believe what they were hearing, and were more than a little confused in their excitement. I'm not joking, Yang Kai replied seriously. After receiving an affirmative answer, Zhang Yuan and Thunder Dragon were both stunned. After a long, stunned silence, Zhang Yuan asked solemnly, Dare I ask Holy Master Yang, what kind of price do we need to pay? Pledge our loyalty and submit to you. Ha ha! Yang Kai smiled, a trace of disdain appearing on his face as he said lightly, Why would I need you to submit to me or give me your loyalty? And, to be perfectly blunt, with a single finger I can force all of Tongxian realm to bow down to me. If I wanted you to submit and swear your allegiance to me, there would be no need for any nonsense. I could just use force to suppress you directly. Zhang Yuan and Thunder Dragon both began sweating. Neither of them thought Yang Kai was blustering. From Yang Kai's previous explanation with his current tyrannical cultivation, none of them could put up any resistance against him. This young man had already surpassed the legendary great demon god of the demon race. He had traveled further and stood at a higher peak. Even if great demon god resurrected and appeared here now, he would likely only be able to look up to him. Then why is Holy Master Yang? Thunder Dragon looked at Yang Kai hesitantly. Everyone here is an old friend. If I can offer you a helping hand, why wouldn't I? I have no other motives, Yang Kai said lightly. Both Zhang Yuan and Thunder Dragon instantly felt ashamed, wishing they could find holes to crawl into and never come out of again. Swiftly, Zhang Yuan cupped his fists and said in a dignified tone, Holy Master Yang is a man of high character and integrity. It was this Zhang Yuan who was overly suspicious and pessimistic. If this Zhang has offended Holy Master Yang in any way, please forgive me. Thunder Dragon quickly expressed his sincere apologies as well. It's fine, you two are leaders of your respective clans, you should be considering things more critically. Yang Kai waved his hand lightly, indicating he didn't mind their suspicions. If he was in their place, he would be behaving the same way. The two masters both relaxed hearing this. While there are many wonders in the star field, there should also be many dangers too, correct? If Holy Master Yang brings so many people into the star field, will you be able to shelter them? Thunder Dragon asked with some worry. There are dangers, so whether you follow me or not is completely up to you. Of course, you can also choose to remain here. Perhaps Tongxian realm will be rejuvenated one day and become like other cultivation stars in the star field where you can sense a higher level of the heavenly way and martial Tao. However, I don't know how long that will take. Yang Kai smiled lightly as he glanced over at Xia Ningchang meaningfully. After refining the star source, becoming a star master, and breaking through to the origin returning realm, Xia Ningchang's aura had become considerably stronger, and the gray aura which had lingered about her had also become much lighter. As long as she could continue to break through at this speed, one day she would be able to stand at the top of the star field, and at that time all of Tongxian realm would benefit. This matter is of great significance. So please allow me a few days, Holy Master Yang. I need to discuss this carefully with my clansmen, Zhang Yuan said. Naturally, Yang Kai gently nodded. Immediately, Yang Kai ordered some of the disciples to show the demon and monster race masters to their accommodations so they could have some private conversations. There was no need for negotiations on the human race side. Nine Heavens Holy Land, Yang Kai's relatives and friends from the Great Han Dynasty, and even Soaring Heaven sect immediately decided to follow Yang Kai to the star field. Of course, some disciples were unwilling to leave their native home and wanted to remain in their original sect, so the various human race masters simply granted them their permission. Not everyone had a fearless spirit and thirst for adventure. In order to gamble one's life for as of yet unseen wonders, great courage and a strong yearning for a higher martial Tao were necessary. However, there weren't many people who refused, only about 30% of each sect. Everyone dispersed, as there was much they needed to handle. Soon, after the hall emptied, Yang Kai smiled and walked over to a pair of women who appeared to be twin sisters. As Yang Kai approached, the breathing of the two women seemed to quicken slightly, as if they were very excited. Jiaoer, Mayor, long time no see. Yang Kai smiled and greeted. There had been too many people just now, so he hadn't had time to personally greet the Hu sisters, but now that he was free, he naturally wanted to speak with them a bit. Moreover, they seemed to be waiting here for him for that purpose. The two women opposite him smiled and spoke in unison. It has been a long time. Have you been doing well? I have indeed. Yang Kai nodded before he frowned slightly awkwardly. His eyes kept glancing between these two, but he still could not tell who was Hu Jiaoer and who was Hu Mayor. This discovery made him scratch his head in confusion. The two sisters had cultivated the twin chi shared spirit divine art, so not only had their appearances become exactly the same, even their temperaments and the life auras coming from their bodies were identical. It was as if they were one person standing here. Moreover, their cultivation had actually reached the second order saint realm rather than the first order that Great Elder Su Hui had reported to him earlier. This rate of cultivation was quite astonishing, leaving Yang Kai somewhat speechless. Although little senior sister had reached the origin returning realm, far higher than the Hu sister's current cultivation, she had obtained the greatest of opportunities, refining a star source to do so. The Hu sisters certainly didn't have such a heaven-defying opportunity, but in this barren land with thin world energy aura, they had managed to reach their current level through their own efforts. This demonstrated that their aptitude was indeed extraordinary. Seeing Yang Kai's face full of confusion, the woman on the left smiled and said, "I'm Jiaoer. I'm Mayor." The woman on the right added. Their voices were soft and pleasant to the ear. Their two temperaments from before seemed to have completely changed, becoming a fusion of the elder sister's boldness and the shyness of the younger sister, making them even more attractive. If you didn't tell me, I really wouldn't have been able to tell. Yang Kai scratched his head. This somewhat naive gesture made the two women laugh. Very few people can tell us apart. Hu Jiaoer curled her lips into a smiling. Even father often confuses us. Yang Kai nodded lightly. If even Hu Man couldn't distinguish which of his two daughters was which, it wasn't surprising for Yang Kai to be unable to tell them apart either. By the way, you two heard about the discussion just now. Do you plan to stay? Or, we're coming with you. Before Yang Kai could finish speaking, the two women replied in unison, as if they shared the same heart and had no need to discuss anything beforehand. If that's the case, then you should quickly prepare. I don't plan to wait too long. I'll be leaving in half a month. All right, we'll meet with father first and then send a message to our two masters, Hu Jiaoer said without delay before immediately leaving with Hu Mayor. However, the two seemed a bit reluctant. After not seeing him for so many years, they really wanted to talk to Yang Kai more. But when they thought about how they would be able to meet each other frequently in the future, they didn't feel as rushed. When passing by Xianxia, the two girls were gently nodded to her, their beautiful eyes flashing with envy. Xianxia could accompany Yang Kai freely, but they couldn't. Little senior sister, during this next half a month, I have something I need to teach you. After all the people in the hall left, Yang Kai quickly walked towards Xianxia and dragged her towards her cultivation room. What Yang Kai wanted to teach to Xianxia was naturally how to condense her shi. He had condensed his shi with the help of the Emperor pressure from the Emperor Garden, a rather unique method that, although it produced amazing effects, was clearly not suitable for Xianxia. However, the basic insights and comprehensions about how to condense shi were more or less universal. What's more, he had learned many valuable experiences from Chen Tong and the other masters he was close with. Now, he was going to teach everything to Xianxia. Additionally, Yang Kai taught little senior sister what he had learned from the true alchemy enlightenment scripture. Little senior sister had a special constitution, the sacred spirit medicine body, so she possessed innate ability and talent when it came to refining pills, not needing anyone to teach her in order for her to advance. However, the true alchemy enlightenment scripture was filled with profound knowledge that would be of great help to Xianxia when it came to raising her alchemy skills. Half a month was neither long nor short. Yang Kai and Xianxia did not leave their cultivation room during that time. Naturally, they took some time out to spend together. Yang Kai would enjoy the company of this gentle beauty and, on occasion, suddenly make love to her. Since setting foot into the star field, Yang Kai had essentially had no intimate contact with any woman. So now that he had been reunited with little senior sister, who he didn't need to restrain himself around, he was like a freed beast that had just found its favorite prey and pounced without reserve. Xianxia's complexion also grew better and better, her already jade-like skin gaining a shimmering luster to it. She was like a beautiful flower that had just been moistened by the morning dew. After half a month, Yang Kai and Xianxia exited their retreat together. Xianxia was naturally unable to condense her shi after only half a month, but receiving Yang Kai's dedicated teaching, she now at least understood what shi was and had gained some slight experience with this magical power. Now, all she needed was enough time to cultivate it properly. The true alchemy enlightenment scripture was also effortlessly learned by her, the various techniques and spirit arrays recorded in it often causing her eyes to shimmer and glow. 9 Heavens Holy Land was now completely crowded with about 10,000 members of the human, demon, and monster races now gathered here. Among these 10,000, about 2,000 were from the Holy Land, 4,000 were from the Great Han Dynasty, 1,000 were from the monster race, and 2,000 were from the demon race. Even with so many gathered, however, the scene was extremely quiet, with no one even whispering. Everyone was simply waiting silently for Yang Kai's arrival. Everyone was eager to know what method Yang Kai would be using to bring so many people into the star field at once. In a brilliant flash of light, Yang Kai appeared, and 10,000 pairs of eyes fixed on him. Looking out across the crowd, Yang Kai gently nodded. Now that everyone is here, let's begin. Yang Kai, what do we need to do? Just give the order. Thunder Dragon called out. Exactly. We will cooperate fully. Zhang Yuan nodded in agreement. You don't need to do anything. Just relax and don't resist. Yang Kai smiled slightly before taking out a seemingly inconspicuous bead and suspending it in front of him, attracting everyone's attention. They didn't know what mysteries this bead held, or why Yang Kai had brought it out at this time. The answer was quickly revealed, however. Yang Kai stretched out his hand and with a flick of his wrist, the bead flew out like an arrow from the string and arrived atop the place where the thousands of people were gathered. With a soft pop, a magical power emerged from the bead, and as it swept outwards, everyone felt as if they were being held by a strange force. Out of trust in Yang Kai, no one circulated their strength or tried to resist this force. A burst of light blinded them in the next moment, and after their sight was restored, everyone suddenly realized that they had come to a completely strange place. This was not 9 Heavens Holy Land, but the scenery was still extremely beautiful. Moreover, the world energy here seemed to be extremely rich, more than 100 times higher than the average on Tongxian realm. This discovery shocked everyone greatly. What's this? A demon race man suddenly discovered something in this new world and shouted as he pointed towards a certain place. Following his gaze, everyone immediately spotted a roughly 100-meter-long pitch-black ship quietly suspended in the air. A starship! Demon Commander Zhang Yuan called out in shock. Although he had received a report from Demon General Meng Ge that Yang Kai had a powerful starship in his possession, he hadn't seen it with his own eyes yet, so he wasn't sure whether this was true or false. Now that this starship had appeared in front of him, he immediately understood that this news was real. There was a starship buried beneath the demon capital, but that starship was in tatters, and, in terms of grade, it seemed like it wasn't even worthy of carrying shoes for the ship in front of him. Zhang Yuan had keen eyesight and could naturally see how extraordinary this starship was at a glance. What made him even more surprised, however, were the people standing around the starship. When these people saw a massive crowd of people suddenly appear, they all directed curious looks towards them. Out of habit, Zhang Yuan released his divine sense to sweep these unknown cultivators, but expression changed dramatically in the next instant. He discovered that the cultivation of each of these people was much higher than his own, and although they didn't give him the same feeling of oppression as Yang Kai, Zhang Yuan was certain each of these cultivators was a legendary Saint King. Had they already entered the star field? Were these people cultivators from the star field? All sorts of suspicions flashed across Zhang Yuan's mind, as well as many of the others gathered here. Don't be nervous. Yang Kai's voice suddenly came from a certain place and his figure quickly appeared in front of the Saint King realm cultivators as he explained, "These are disciples from my sect. Disciples greet sect master." Immediately, this group of cultivators, who gave everyone from Tongxian realm an unattainable feeling, saluted Yang Kai. Yang Kai gently nodded before turning to the one who seemed to be in charge and saying, "Lu Ping, these are my relatives and friends from my homeland. I will be taking them back to Shadowed Star with us, so they will need to remain here for the time being. Take good care of them." "Yes." The disciple named Lu Ping quickly nodded. Yang Kai next came over to Chu Ling Xiao and Ling Tai Su and bowed. "Martial Ancestor, Grand Master. This is a small sealed world. Although it's not very big, it is more than enough to accommodate a trivial 10,000 people. It is safe here, and I will let you out when we reach our destination." Disciple lacks talent, but in a place called Shadowed Star, he has founded High Heaven Sect. Until we reach there, I will need the two of you to take charge here. And the journey will probably take quite some time, at least several years. If you have any questions, you can ask these disciples of mine. They will give you their full cooperation. "Sure. Go on, you don't need to worry about us here." Chu Ling Xiao smiled kindly. Chu Ling Xiao had no idea how precious and heaven-defying the sealed world bead and Origin King grade starship were. If he did, he wouldn't be acting so calmly. "Disciple will head out first. When I am free, I will come to visit you," Yang Kai said before leaving the small sealed world. After Yang Kai left, the disciple named Lu Ping ran over immediately and greeted Ling Tai Su and Chu Ling Xiao. He had heard clearly just now how Yang Kai addressed these two old men as Martial Ancestor and Grand Master, so although his cultivation was much higher than these two, he didn't dare show any negligence, bowing respectfully as any junior would. Seeing this boy behaving like this, Chu Ling Xiao and Ling Tai Su did not have any scruples and immediately began inquiring about Shadowed Star and High Heaven Sect to Lu Ping. After learning that High Heaven Sect was now the greatest sect on Shadowed Star, basically having dominated the entire star, the two of them couldn't help feeling a sense of pride. In just a trivial 30 years, Yang Kai had used his own power to subdue an entire cultivation star. This was not something an ordinary man could accomplish, and they were left in awe of Yang Kai's abilities. Quickly, they began to ask more questions. Having settled things in the sealed world bead, Yang Kai put it away before sweeping his divine sense across the now empty Nine Heavens Holy Land. Putting away the slight nostalgia in his eyes, he turned to Xianing Chong, who was standing next to him patiently. He said, "Little senior sister, can you help me find someone?" Xianing Chong did not enter the sealed world bead. She was now in the First Order Origin returning realm, and would not hinder Yang Kai. As she had just made a breakthrough, there were a lot of things to learn, so Yang Kai allowed her to follow him. It was convenient to teach while they traveled. What's more, traveling with a beauty was very pleasing to the eye. Listening to Yang Kai, she immediately asked, "Who are you looking for?" "Old Man Li." Yang Kai looked at her. Xianing Chong suddenly came over, gently nodded, closed her beautiful eyes, and started to search. Now that she was the Star Master of Tongxian Realm, having refined the Star Source, she could travel back and forth anywhere in the mainland with a single thought. On Tongxian Realm, She was the master. It was a simple task for her to find someone. She communicated with the star source of Tongxian realm with her mind and sensed the messages sent by the flowers and trees on the mainland, distinguishing the traces of the person she was looking for. In less than half a day, she opened her beautiful eyes and whispered softly, "Found him!" Yang Kai was shocked and stepped forward and grabbed Xianing Chang's little hand. "Take me to him." Xianing Chang gave a gentle nod and aimed the index finger of her jade-white hand in front of her. From the void, a dark whirlpool appeared immediately, as if to swallow everything. The two stepped into it and disappeared. Atop an unnamed barren and desolate mountain, there stood several thatched huts. No one would have thought that this was where the reclusive old man of Heaven's Keep, Li Rui, who was famous throughout the continent, lived. Yang Kai held great respect for old man Li, not only because he was the longest-lived wise man in the entire continent, having lived for thousands of years under the cultivation of Saint Realm, but also because of how old man Li had generously taught Yang Kai. Old man Li once came to Nine Heavens Holy Land and helped Yang Kai greatly. At the time when the bone race recovered, old man Li managed to call on the whole human race to unite with his great reputation. Upon returning to Nine Heavens Holy Land this time, Yang Kai had not found old man Li and his disciple Diyao. Obviously, with old man Li and Diyao's personalities, it was probably impossible for them to stay in one place for a long time, so they left Nine Heavens Holy Land. Now that Yang Kai was going to return to the star field, of course he wanted to take old man Li with him. "It's here." Xianing Chang had brought Yang Kai to this barren mountain that was less than 1,000 feet high, and Yang Kai could not help but frown. "N." Xianing Chang nodded gently. "But I didn't sense old man Li's aura. Only senior brother D's." After hearing what she had said, Yang Kai had a bad feeling. He looked up and saw the simple thatched houses. In front of the thatched houses were a few medicine fields. However, what was planted was not the spirit grasses used for cultivation, but simple ordinary medicinal herbs. These herbs were effective for treating ordinary people, but they were of no use in cultivation. There was one person. He was taking care of the herbs in the middle of the medicine garden, watering and fertilizing, repeating the monotonous movements with a meticulous expression. Yang Kai stepped towards him. "Here to see a doctor?" The man who was watering heard movement and asked casually without raising his head. "Brother D, it's been a long time." Yang Kai looked at him with a smile as he greeted him. Diyao's movements paused, as if he realized something. He slowly straightened up and looked at Yang Kai. After seeing Yang Kai's face clearly, he could not help grinning. A smile filled with flawless white teeth, coupled with his jade, flowery face that almost made any women jealous. The round sunset behind him poured on him, giving off an afterglow, a sputtering golden halo. "This brat is still as handsome as ever." Diyao took 2 steps forward and gave Yang Kai a strong hug. "Brother Yang, when did you come back?" He did not seem surprised at all, as if he knew Yang Kai would return safely. "It's been almost 2 months." Diyao gently nodded, shook off the dirt on his hands, and greeted enthusiastically. "Come on. Today we drink to celebrate." "Yeah." Yang Kai responded readily. In front of the thatched hut, the two sat on the ground. There was no food, only the shining stars in the sky and the oncoming breeze as dishes to go with the drink. Xianing Chang sat to the side, holding a jug in her hand, and poured wine for Yang Kai and Diyao. The sky was full of stars, and in front of a thatched house, friends had finally gathered after a long parting. It was a happy occasion. "Master, he passed away more than 20 years ago," Diyao suddenly blurted out. Although he had guessed as much, when Yang Kai heard the news, the hand with which he held the wine glass slightly shook. Diyao grinned and said, "His last moments were very peaceful. After all, Master was already so old. It was time." With the cultivation of Saint Realm, living for thousands of years was simply not something others could do. Old man Li had been proficient in pharmacology and used elixirs to regulate his body to live so long. "Brother D." Yang Kai thought for a while but didn't know what to say. Diyao smiled and said, "Master is still here. He continues to live in my heart." Yang Kai looked at him and laughed, relieved. "Brother Yang, for you to come all this way. Did you have something to ask, Master? Diao asked. It's nothing. It's just that I'm leaving again and wanted Old Man Li and Brother Di to join me. Into the star field? Diao narrowed his eyes. Yup. Yang Kai nodded. Diao fell silent for a long time before shaking his head and saying, The Master raised me and taught me, treating me with kindness as great as that of the mountains. I can't let him be here alone. Yang Kai opened his mouth, but before he could persuade him, Diao smiled and said, Brother Yang doesn't need to say more. I have decided. Seeing him so insistent, Yang Kai could only sigh. They continued to drink, binge, and get drunk. When dawn came, Diao lay on the ground, slumbering. Yang Kai and Xianxia found a simple tomb at the top of the mountain and worshipped it devoutly. After leaving some cultivation resources for Diao, he left silently. Are you really going to leave Senior Brother Di there alone? Xianxia asked with a little unease. It's his own decision. Yang Kai responded lightly, but Xianxia seemed to want to say something. It is not necessarily a bad thing. Once your cultivation enters a higher realm, you will be rejuvenating the mainland. At that stage, it would be inconsequential for Brother Di to leave. Xianxia nodded, indicating that she understood. After thinking about it, she asked, Where are we going now? There should be a shortcut to Starfield from our original world. We are looking to find someone we both know. Yang Kai smiled slightly. After a while, the two came to the site of the free and unfettered spirit temple, and through the void corridor, they entered a place not far from the high heaven pavilion. After the seal set by the great demon god was lifted, Tongshan realm and their original world were connected. This was the starting point of his life. After arriving, when Yang Kai swept his divine sense through, he immediately noticed that there were many more people in the original high heaven pavilion, and he did not know which family or sect occupied it. However, it felt quite prosperous. Yang Kai chose not to bother them. The cultivators here were as weak as children to him. He did not go to central capital either. The original central capital was 8 great families. The 3 families close to him were all in the sealed world bead, and the only remaining 5 families were now thriving there. Yang Kai was too lazy to bother with them. He took little senior sister and flew directly towards Ashgray Cloud Evil Land. Although little senior sister was the star master of Tongshan realm, in this world, which had its own world principles, she could not travel thousands of kilometers in a flash. Yang Kai did not know how this world was formed, but after witnessing Tongshan realm's process from birth to prosperity to decline, he vaguely felt that this world should be related to the ancient, powerful cultivator. It might have been created by someone who cultivated to a heaven-defying level. After all, the one who created this place does not necessarily mean that they are the same ones who develop it. Ashgray Cloud Evil Land was as chaotic as ever. In the past, several evil kings ruled and suppressed it. Although this land had bred filth and evil, there were still some rules to follow. But since the death and disappearance of the evil kings, Ashgray Cloud Evil Land has become an even more chaotic and evil land. Everyone understands innately what it means to be a decent person. Nonetheless, they burn, murder, and pillage. Anything can happen here, and there was no reason to anything. Only one law existed. The one with the bigger fist makes the law. The two of them continued to walk without stopping. What they saw and heard was nothing but horrible. Yang Kai could maintain his indifference. His heart was unmoved by their actions, as though it was still water. However, little senior sister was different. She could not help but teach a lesson to those who only knew to bully the weak. Fragrance City, originally a city under the jurisdiction of beguiling demon queen Shan Qingluo, and the last piece of pure land in Ashgray Cloud Evil Land. Unfortunately, ever since Shan Qingluo's disappearance, this last piece of pure land had also been corrupted, and the city has been dark and chaotic. When passing by, Yang Kai could not help but miss it. Back then, he had known the devilish woman of this land, but after Yang Kai returned from Tongshan realm, he could not find her. He had thought it would be impossible to find Shan Qingluo ever again. He would have never thought that he would meet her in the Emperor Garden, learn about her current whereabouts and fight together with her. Yang Kai felt that he could not forget about this extremely charming devilish woman. The place he was going to on this trip was Spider Mother's Denver. According to Shan Qing Luo's maidservant, by Luo, she and Shan Qing Luo had been taken to the Monster Emperor Star when they accidentally activated the altar in Spider Mother's Denver. So Yang Kai also wanted to use the altar. If he succeeded, not only could he stop by to see how the devilish woman was doing, but also save a lot of time. He did not want to spend years on Starship, he just wanted to hurry. Spider Mother's Den was not too far from Fragrance City, only a few tens of thousands of kilometers. At Yang Kai's current speed, it would only take half a cup of tea's time to arrive. Spider Mother's Den was in tatters. After it collapsed that year, no one had cared about this place. Upon arriving, Yang Kai walked into the huge spider statue with ease and found a strange altar. The altar was only about the size of a person, but had many mysterious and complicated patterns carved on it. Some of these seemed to form a wonderful spirit array, and others were like ancient characters. Yang Kai released his divine sense but did not notice anything abnormal from it. On the altar, there were still some dark black stains. These were, naturally, the blood Shan Qing Luo shed that day. "Junior brother, what is this?" Xianxia tilted her head and asked doubtfully. "This is the shortcut." Yang Kai smiled lightly and began explaining in detail. Hearing that Shan Qing Luo and Bai Luo had entered the star field directly from here, Xianxia immediately became curious. She finally learned who it was Yang Kai said they were going to meet, and after doing so, she couldn't help giggling as she glanced over at Yang Kai meaningfully. It's not what you think," Yang Kai argued weakly. "Forget it. I will study this thing. Feel free to do as you please." Xianxia nodded, sat down in a clean place nearby, and began comprehending the true alchemy enlightenment scripture while trying to condense her sure. Yang Kai reached out and touched the strange runes and patterns engraved on the altar in front of him, releasing his divine sense as he studied them carefully. Since Shan Qing Luo and Bai Luo could reach Monster Emperor Star from this place, it meant that this altar was able to open a portal between the two places. In other words, as long as the conditions were met, this altar could form a stable void corridor. This was far more profound than even the most powerful space arrays Yang Kai had seen. Yang Kai knew that some of the most ancient space arrays in the star field were capable of transporting cultivators from one cultivation star to another, spanning billions of kilometers in an instant, but this kind of space array was extremely rare. On top of that, most of these ancient space arrays were heavily damaged, and using them was extremely risky. Perhaps someone like Heaven Battling Union's Mo Xiaosheng could repair an ordinary space array, but he would be absolutely helpless in front of these super long-distance space arrays. In general, even if a great force was in possession of this kind of special space array, they would only use it as a last resort, instead preferring to spend a large amount of time using a starship to sail from one point to another rather than risking their lives. The orthodox method to activate this altar was to make use of Shan Qing Luo's bloodline. Back then, she and Bai Luo had accidentally activated this altar with her blood. Yang Kai naturally couldn't use this method. Although his golden blood was powerful, it obviously didn't have the same composition as Shan Qing Luo's blood. He could only rely on his own profound comprehension of the Tao of space. One by one, Yang Kai investigated the ancient runes on the altar, but he obtained no reaction from it at all. Not becoming anxious, Yang Kai continued immersing his consciousness into these patterns. Progressively, Yang Kai uncovered their mysteries. These ancient characters almost behaved as if they had a mind of their own and were subtly interlinked with one another. Yang Kai gradually began comprehending them. Trying repeatedly, Yang Kai studied the altar and he felt that he had some gains as time progressed. But even after many careful investigations, he achieved nothing. Time passed by. Little senior sister sat quietly to the side, not bothering Yang Kai at all. Right now, she was immersed in the process of condensing her sure and comprehending the true alchemy enlightenment scripture, and had lost track of her surroundings. One day, Yang Kai suddenly opened his eyes and a light flashed across them, as if he had had a significant gain. Injecting his space force into the ancient altar, Yang Kai began connecting the various complicated patterns and runes together in a specific sequence. It was like threading a needle, tying the runes and patterns closer together one by one until they formed a single inseparable whole. When his space force penetrated the last rune, the patterns on the altar suddenly burst with light, as if given new life, and floated up into the air. These runes and patterns swam about like fish, rearranging and combining until finally they formed a closed illusionary gate in front of Yang Kai. "Little senior sister," Yang Kai shouted. Xianxia quickly opened her eyes and with a flicker, arrived next to Yang Kai and held his hand. She knew the time had come. Yang Kai paused a moment as he stared at the illusionary gate with an extremely dignified look on his face. Although he had successfully used his comprehension of the Tao of space to inject his space force into the altar and activated it to form this gateway, he didn't have the key to open it. Shanqing Luo's blood was that key, something he naturally lacked. However, Yang Kai had his own methods. Condensing his space force at the tip of his finger, he stabbed it forward and then slashed it down fiercely. Space trembled and a small crack soon appeared on the closed door. Initially, this crack was very small, almost imperceptible, but it was expanding at a very rapid rate. In the blink of an eye, it swallowed the entire gate, revealing a pitch-black passage. This was a fully formed void corridor that connected 2 points many billions of kilometers apart. Inside, there was nothingness and chaos, like the giant mouth of a beast that was capable of swallowing the entire world. Xianxia's tender body couldn't help growing slightly tense as she held onto Yang Kai's big hand a bit tighter. Yang Kai didn't hesitate, however, pulling Xianxia along with him into the vortex. When the two of them were gone, the black corridor closed again and disappeared. Everything around them had gone silent and dark, with nothing but darkness behind or ahead of Xianxia and Yang Kai. However, from within this darkness, Xianxia could feel a kind of mysterious power flowing, like a rushing river that was trying to drag her under. Yang Kai quickly protected her. This was the void, a mysterious and indescribable place that was all but impossible for ordinary people to reach, and a forbidden area where it was difficult for anything to survive. Any master that became lost in this mysterious place would eventually become engulfed by the darkness, never able to emerge from it again. Even Yang Kai, when traversing this place, raised his vigilance to its highest level, using his divine sense to constantly and carefully survey their surroundings, so he could bring Xianxia to avoid the deadly currents of the void. This strange place also seemed to affect one's senses, even how they perceived the passing of time. Yang Kai could only push his space force desperately to resist this outside interference. When Shanqing Luo and Bai Luo had used the altar to travel to Monster Emperor Star back then, it would not have been dangerous at all because Shanqing Luo's bloodline had properly activated it. Alternatively, Yang Kai had used a special method to forcefully open the altar, so the risks he was taking by using it were many times greater. Fortunately, his accomplishments in the Tao of space were quite profound, so even if he currently felt like he was treading on thin ice, he could still barely manage it. Yang Kai wasn't sure how much time passed before he suddenly led Xianxia towards a certain spot. After arriving, Yang Kai stretched out his hand and swiped forward again, tearing space and bringing Xianxia out from the void into an unknown place. Little senior sister didn't recover her senses until this moment, and the confusion in her beautiful eyes gradually cleared up. To her, only a moment had passed, but what she didn't know was that Yang Kai had been struggling for many days in the void to bring them here. That mysterious place had greatly affected Xianxia's judgment of the passage of time. Currently, the pair was in some kind of damp, dark underground cave that had a pile of white bones scattered around it. Judging from the scale of these bones, however, whatever creature they belonged to must have been enormous when it was still alive. "This is..." Xianxia looked around curiously. Yang Kai walked forward, reached out his hand, picked up one of the bones, and examined it carefully before grinning. "We've arrived. This is Monster Emperor Star." "Monster Emperor Star?" Xianxia murmured. "The star where elder sister Qing Luo is?" Yang Kai nodded. He was able to make this judgment thanks to the white bones around them. If he guessed correctly, these white bones should be the remains of the heavenly moon demon spider. All those years ago, when Shanqing Luo and Bai Luo arrived here, The first thing they encountered was the corpse of a heavenly moon demon spider. Shan Qing Luo had absorbed the source of this variant ancient divine spirit and was taken in by the Red Moon tribal lord as her adopted daughter, allowing her to integrate into Monster Emperor Star. If not for this series of events with her identity as a human, how could Shan Qing Luo have gained a foothold on this monster race star? It would have been even more impossible for her to have reached the terrifying height of third-order origin returning realm master in just a few dozen years without such support. The heavenly moon demon spider source had helped Shan Qing Luo a lot. Her bloodline originally had some traces of the heavenly moon demon spiders, which was why she could activate the altar in the first place and obtain this opportunity. Opportunities like this were truly quite mysterious. Yang Kai had worked so hard over the years and his luck was indeed good. But he had only broken through to the second-order origin returning realm while Shan Qing Luo was still one step ahead of him. Yang Kai pondered as he recalled all the information Bai Luo had revealed to him in the Emperor Garden that day. He didn't know much about Monster Emperor Star, only that it was a cultivation star dominated by the monster race. Although there were also humans on Monster Emperor Star, they were all subjects to the monster race's rule. The human race had its own set of advantages and uses, so despite the monster race being in a dominant position here, they did not seek to exterminate all humans and instead just let matters drift. Only if some kind of master that threatened the monster race's dominance emerged from the human population would the monster race's master step in to kill them. On Monster Emperor Star, the human race essentially had no status. The 10 great tribal lords were the masters of Monster Emperor Star, and each one had reached the Origin King realm. The Red Moon tribal lord, who received Shan Qing Luo as her adopted daughter, was one of them. Yang Kai thought for a moment, but quickly concluded that this really was all he knew, leaving quite a lot to be desired. "Let's go outside first," Yang Kai said to Xianning Chong before leading her out of the underground cave. When they came outside, Yang Kai suddenly discovered that he was actually partway up a lofty and majestic mountain with a rich ambient world energy aura. However, there was also a thick monster chi lingering in the air. From the surrounding mountains, the roars of ferocious monster beasts could be heard from time to time. Yang Kai really wondered how Shan Qing Luo had left this place safely. Obviously she had experienced a lot of hardship. Collecting himself, Yang Kai summoned his star shuttle and led Xianning Chong swiftly across the jungle. This place may be extremely dangerous for others, but to Yang Kai it was nothing. Beneath the Origin King realm, he didn't fear anyone, and he could even calmly face an ordinary Origin King. Since he had cultivated the Tao of space, few people could compel him into a hopeless situation, unless they trapped him inside a small enclosed space like how Star Emperor Mountain's sect master Qi Tianche had done. However, even trapping Yang Kai wasn't sufficient as his opponent would need enough strength to completely suppress him as well. Qi Tianche didn't have such strength, which resulted in his death. What Yang Kai needed most right now was information. It should be easy for him to find where Shan Qing Luo was. After all, she was the adopted daughter of the Red Moon tribal lord, so she would be wherever the Red Moon tribal lord was. Shan Qing Luo's heart-piercing cries from when the Emperor Garden closed still echoed in Yang Kai's ears. Now that he had come to Monster Emperor Star, naturally, he needed to see for himself if that enchantress was living well. A few days later, Yang Kai and Xianning Chong flew out from the deep mountains and lush forests. Along the way, Yang Kai had encountered a lot of monster beasts, but all of them were feral, so he could not glean any useful information from them, making him feel quite helpless. He could only pin his hopes on meeting someone in the future. While speeding along aimlessly with Xianning Chong, Yang Kai released his divine sense to scan their surroundings. Suddenly, he noticed something, turned towards a certain direction, and said, "There's movement over there. Let's go take a look." And Xianning Chong naturally had no objections. The pair landed and walked side by side in the direction Yang Kai pointed out just now, a short time later encountering a team of about a dozen cultivators. These cultivators exuded a wild aura quite different from the aura a human cultivator possessed. Additionally, each of them had some physical characteristics that resembled a monster beast. The dozen or so cultivators in this team obviously belonged to the monster race. Each of these monster race cultivators was riding a wolf-shaped monster beast and wore matching golden armor, giving them an imposing appearance. Even though there were only a dozen or so of them, as they rode forward, they appeared akin to a torrent of fine steel and created quite a loud disturbance. Sweeping them with his divine sense, Xianxia found that the strongest cultivator from the monster race cultivator was just a second-order Saint King, so he had nothing to fear. Taking Xianxia with him, Xianxia walked out openly to greet this group. "Excuse me." When he got closer, Xianxia smiled and cupped his fists to the monster race cultivator who seemed to be the team's leader. The other party had obviously spotted him a long time ago and rode his wolf-shaped monster beast mount over to Xianxia while looking down at him condescendingly, a natural air of contempt and scrutiny flashing across his eyes. The monster beast mount also projected a malicious aura towards Xianxia's face, as if it could not wait to stretch out its mouth and see if Xianxia tasted delicious or not. Xianxia just smiled lightly to all of this. This was Monster Emperor Star, a world dominated by the monster race, so it was only natural for monster race cultivators to have a natural sense of superiority when facing those from other races. They felt that no race could compare to their supreme monster race and that none were more powerful than them. In front of the monster race, all others could only bow their heads and serve them. Humans? The lead monster race cultivator squinted at Xianxia, recognizing his origins immediately. The wolf-shaped monster beast mount also growled, seemingly perceiving its master's dislike for these two, and began circling around Xianxia and Xianxia. After returning to his previous position, the monster race cultivator coldly snorted and said, "What are you two humans doing out here? Haha, we accidentally lost our way. If you would not mind, could you tell us where this place is?" "This is the Red Moon territory," the monster race cultivator replied proudly. "It is the region under the jurisdiction of the Great Red Moon Tribal Lord." "Don't you know even this?" I know this is the territory of Red Moon Tribal Lord," Xianxia chuckled. "What I want to ask is, where's the nearest city? If it is convenient, can you tell me where Red Moon Tribal Lord's palace is located?" "Why do you want to know where Lady Tribal Lord's palace is located?" The monster race cultivator suddenly wore a cold expression after hearing this as he glared at Xianxia more and more unkindly. "What are your intentions here?" "Nothing serious. I just happen to have a friend who lives in Red Moon Tribal Lord's palace. I was hoping to see her," Xianxia replied casually. "A friend?" The monster race cultivator was taken aback for a moment, but soon burst into laughter filled with mockery. Even the other monster race cultivators began laughing. "Human, I advise you to give up. No one is allowed to approach Lady Tribal Lord's palace without being summoned. Not even my monster race, let alone you humans. However, you may rest assured, Lady Tribal Lord has always been kind to you humans. If your friend is a servant in the palace, he or she should be living well." He subconsciously thought that the friend Xianxia was referring to was just an insignificant person in the palace. This was normal though. The humans in Lady Tribal Lord's palace were all either beautiful women or handsome men who served as nothing more than servants. In the territory of the monster race, humans always had low status. Many thanks for this friend's reminder. However, I still wish to know where the palace is, Xianxia insisted. "Humans are always as arrogant as you. That's why I can't stand you all." The monster race cultivator snorted coldly as he declared arrogantly, "I can tell you, but why should I? Give me a reason." "Here." Xianxia nodded before throwing out a bag of Saint crystals. The monster race cultivator caught this bag, opened it, and suddenly became ecstatic as he exclaimed, "High-rank Saint crystals." As soon as these words came out, the other monster race cultivators showed a greedy look as they stared back and forth between the package and Xianxia and Xianxia. Malicious glints were mixed in with their gazes. "Can you tell me now?" Xianxia looked at the other party with a smile. "Of course, you're quite tactful for a human, so I'll tell you." The monster race cultivator hesitated for a moment before his expression settled and he began telling Xianxia what he wanted to know. A short time later, Xianxia cupped his fists to the monster race man before taking Xianxia away. "Leader, those humans were obviously quite rich. Why did you let them go?" A monster race cultivator who seemed to be relatively young approached and asked indignantly. "Humph. You think I can't see how rich he is? Then why didn't we bury them here? This is the wilderness, so even if Lady Qi Yu doesn't allow us to kill humans at will, no one will know if they die here. Idiot! If we really tried that, the ones who would be buried here wouldn't be them but us. Ha! That's not possible, is it? The monster race youth was not convinced. Of course it's possible, even though he was so rich, when he was facing so many of us. Did you ever see him show the slightest bit of fear? Even the human woman next to him was completely calm. What does this mean? It means that neither of them puts us in their eyes. You idiots were blinded by those saint crystals and completely ignored their strength. Because this is the wilderness, I don't dare to act rashly, otherwise. Hearing what his team leader said, the monster race youth couldn't help leaking cold sweat as he glanced reluctantly in the direction Yang Kai and Xianing Chong left while sighing. That woman looked tender and delicate. If I could have just a bite. Some cultivators from the monster race were transformed from monster beasts, so they still maintained their habits of eating other creatures raw. But in general, there were not many such cultivators. Most monster race cultivators were born in human form and just retained some traces of their monster beast heritage. Clearly, this monster race was born a monster beast and had achieved human form later, which was why he had no interest in Xianing Chang's face, which was hidden behind her black veil, but instead coveted her fair skin and delicate physique. Soft and tender humans were always delicious, especially young human women. Enough nonsense, Thousand Eyes Tribal Lord's son should already be on his way here. We need to find his whereabouts and then send word back to so that Lady Tribal Lord can send out a proper escort. We cannot afford a single mistake in this mission, the lead monster race cultivator quickly said, but soon, a layer of haze appeared on his face as he ground his teeth. I don't know how many women from our territory will be ruined at the young lord's hand. Hearing him mention this young lord of Lord Chen Yen, all the monster race cultivators fell silent, as if they deeply dreaded him. Junior brother, what should we do now? Xianing Chong followed behind Yang Kai and asked softly. Let's go to the nearest city first. Yang Kai sighed. Although he had easily learned the location of the Red Moon Tribal Lord's palace from the monster race cultivator, it was impossible for him to just go there to find Shan Qing Luo. The monster race man he spoke to had said very clearly that no one was allowed to approach the tribal lord's palace without being summoned. Even those from the monster race did not dare violate this rule, not to mention that Yang Kai and Xianing Chong were just humans. Qi Yu, one of the 10 great tribal lords on Monster Emperor Star, was inside that palace, so even if Yang Kai was confident in his strength, he wouldn't dare act carelessly around an Origin King Realm Master like her. On top of that, from what Bai Luo had told him, Qi Yu seemed to be a second-order Origin King. If he were to try to force his way in, he would likely die. He had to think of a better way. It would be best if he could send a message to Shan Qing Luo and let her come out to see him herself. Yang Kai was lost in thought. One day later, he and Xianing Chong arrived in front of a monster race city. Shimmering Moon City was a little different from the cities Yang Kai had previously been to. The buildings in this city were filled with a rough and wild style that matched with the monster race, and while not exquisite, it still had a grand and imposing feeling. Naturally, it was not just the monster race that lived in this city, there were also humans who were coming and going. Red Moon Tribal Lord was better in this regard compared to other tribal lords. In her territory, no monster race could kill innocent humans without cause. Although humans still had low status, they had their own talents, and it was these talents Qi Yu fancied, which was why she created a space for humans to survive in. The other 9 tribal lords did not share Qi Yu's level of foresight. This was especially true for Wild Lion Tribal Lord, who was the most addicted to killing and slaughter. In his territory, if there were traces of any humans, his children would follow his doctrine and kill all humans on sight, partaking of their flesh and blood. As a result, the humans that originally lived in his territory had all scattered and fled, most rushing to Red Moon territory, a relatively safe region for humans. Generally speaking, the two races lived in harmony in Shimmering Moon City. Of course, humans always had inferior status. When entering Shimmering Moon City, monster race cultivators only needed to pay 3 mid-rank Saint Crystals, but Yang Kai needed to pay 1 high-rank Saint Crystal. Regarding this, Yang Kai had no complaints. After paying 2 high-rank St. Crystals, he entered the city together with Xianxia. The extremely spacious street was large enough to accommodate several carts driving side by side, and on both sides of the street was a wide variety of shops that had dazzling wares on display. Human and monster race cultivators went to and fro, creating a bustling atmosphere. The owners of these shops also attended to their customers with great zeal, actively soliciting business for their stores. Xianxia walked around the streets and soon discovered that most of these stores were opened by humans, with stores run by monster race cultivators being the minority. In terms of business, humans obviously had more talent than the monster race. Observing the wares along the road, Xianxia's eyes gradually brightened. He found many cultivation materials on this monster emperor star that were not available on Shadowed Star. This was normal though, as every star had its own unique products. Monster Emperor Star was a cultivation star that was dominated by the monster race, so here, the most common goods on the market were naturally monster beast parts and monster cores. When he discovered this, Xianxia could not help feeling shocked. He had not expected that everyone was openly selling monster beast parts in a city ruled by the monster race. This was genuinely surprising. After all, many monster race cultivators were born as monster beasts, so didn't they feel disgusted by such businesses? It would be the equivalent of someone in a city on Shadowed Star selling human limbs or organs. No one would patronize such a shop. However, after thinking about it carefully, Xianxia relaxed and found this practice quite reasonable. Since the business of selling monster beast parts was thriving, everyone had become accustomed to it. What's more, not all of the monster race were transformed from monster beasts, and even those who were would have plenty of experience killing other, weaker monster beasts when they too were monster beasts in order to consume their flesh and swallow their cores to strengthen themselves. Xianxia began simply observing with interest. Junior brother, there are so many high-end materials here. Xianxia's eyes also shined brightly. On Tongxian realm, she was restricted by the level of materials available and could not refine higher-grade pills. But after arriving here on Monster Emperor Star, it was like she had just entered a giant treasure trove. The dazzling array of high-end materials made her wish she could buy them all, then go back and refine pills immediately. Now that she had refined its star source, the prosperity or decline of Tongxian realm was closely related to her cultivation. So Xianxia could not wait to improve her strength. To her, performing alchemy was the same as cultivating, and by doing so she could rapidly improve her strength. And it's a pity that we don't have that many St. Crystals left. Xianxia also felt the situation was a bit troublesome. Since Xianxia took a fancy to these materials, how could he not? However, most of the St. Crystals he had brought with him had been used up when Xianxia refined the star source. What he had left was only some reserves and were not enough to purchase these materials in large quantities. Seeing the disappointment in Xianxia's eyes, however, Xianxia smiled lightly and said, "But buying a few ingredients should not be a problem." Little senior sister smiled immediately as her eyes bent into happy crescents. The two quickly walked into a nearby shop and began checking out its wares while bargaining with the owner. Half a day later, Xianxia's space ring was filled with many alchemy materials. There were also many valuable treasures in Xianxia's space ring. There were herbs he obtained from the floating continent and Emperor Garden in the past, along with others he had brought with him from Shadowed Star. If these herbs were paired with the right monster beast parts and monster cores, Xianxia would be able to use many of the ancient pill recipes in the True Alchemy Enlightenment scripture. Xianxia had not been able to acquire the materials needed for these ancient pill recipes so far because most of them required specific monster beast parts or monster cores, and on Shadowed Star, the number of powerful monster beasts was quite low. Even the cleverest woman could not cook a meal without rice. But on Monster Emperor Star, many things satisfied his requirements. If nothing else, the amount of monster beast materials here was enormous. Xianxia was already considering whether he should stay in this place for a while and search through it carefully. In addition to alchemy materials, cultivating blood beasts as well as refining Origin King grade spirit pills required monster beasts. However, not having enough St. Crystals was a big problem. After buying these materials, Xianxia brought Xianxia to the nearest inn and asked for a good courtyard. Although the architectural style of Shimmering Moon City was quite wild and rough, The rooms in the courtyard Yang Kai booked were quite delicate. Besides having an excellent environment, this courtyard also had barriers around each of its rooms which could block the divine senses of others. This was to ensure the privacy of guests. The owner of this inn was a monster race cultivator, but he was not as domineering as others of the monster race. On the contrary, this old man was quite amiable, and he warmly received Yang Kai and Xianxia, changing the pair's impressions of the monster race somewhat. After settling Xianxia in, Yang Kai left the inn and began to search for information in Shimmering Moon City. He hadn't forgotten that his main purpose in coming here was to look for Shanqing Luo. Currently, the biggest problem he had was finding a way to approach the Red Moon Tribal Lord's palace. After staying in Shimmering Moon City for several days, Yang Kai was no closer to finding a solution to this problem. Instead, he had bought some precious monster beast materials using the limited saint crystals he had left. Young man, you seem to have something on your mind. On a certain day, while Yang Kai was drinking at the inn, lost in thought, the owner walked over with a smile, set down a plate of snacks, then sat down opposite him. These past few days it seems you've been looking for people to inquire about how to visit Lady Tribal Lord's palace. But why do you want to see Lady Tribal Lord? The old man from the monster race, who appeared about 60 years old, had a rickety waist and amicable smile. In recent days, he had taken care of Yang Kai well and done his best to satisfy any requests the latter had. Seeing the owner sitting down on his own initiative, Yang Kai chuckled and replied, "To tell you the truth, old man, I'm not asking about Lady Tribal Lord's palace because I wish to see her." "Oh." The owner of the inn looked at him with interest. "Then what do you want to do? Do you realize that your inquiries had begun to attract the attention of many people? The monster race isn't too friendly to humans here." "I understand." Yang Kai gently nodded. He had indeed noticed how over the past few days, whenever he asked about this topic, the monster race cultivators he spoke with either mocked him or dismissed him. Some even spoke ill of and threatened him. If it were not for the laws Qi Yu had instated, it was likely the monster race cultivators would have attacked him already. A trivial human daring to inquire about Lady Tribal Lord's palace really did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. "You don't want to see Lady Tribal Lord? Then what do you want?" the inn owner asked. "Actually, I have a friend who should be in Lady Tribal Lord's palace, one who I haven't seen in several dozen years. The last time we met we were forced to make an abrupt farewell, without even enough time to say a proper goodbye. So this time I wanted to meet with them and have a good chat." Yang Kai answered honestly. "A friend? Heh, a woman, right?" The owner of the inn smiled meaningfully with an expression that said he knew everything already. Yang Kai gave a dry laugh. "Does that woman like you?" the inn owner asked again. "Old sir must enjoy gossiping." Yang Kai flushed slightly. The old man just smiled lightly in response, not pressing the subject anymore and instead just saying with some emotion, "Young man, you're quite fortunate. That woman you came here with is also a good girl, simple and pure. Yet outside there is another woman who keeps you in her heart. And this old man is somewhat envious." Shifting the subject, the old man continued, "Actually, if you want to know what is happening in the palace, it's actually quite simple." "Oh? Please enlighten me, old sir." Yang Kai immediately became energetic and asked humbly, "Every month, some people will leave the palace to purchase supplies from the surrounding towns. Shimmering Moon City is not too far from the palace, and it is also quite prosperous, so it is generally regarded as one of the primary destinations for such trips. You only need to wait a few days in order to see some of the maidservants from the palace here. If you're lucky, it might even be the woman you wish to meet." He obviously thought the same as the previous monster race cultivator, that Yang Kai's friend was a maidservant in the palace. After all, most humans who were able to enter the palace of Lady Tribal Lord had such statuses. Yang Kai's eyes lit up. Although the owner of the inn had misunderstood the identity of Shanqing Luo, this wasn't a problem. If one of the maidservants that came out from the palace could pass Shanqing Luo a message from him, then everything would be solved. "Many thanks, old sir." Yang Kai cupped his fists happily. "It's fine. This old man didn't do anything worthy of thanks." "Old sir?" Yang Kai looked at him curiously and asked, I feel that your attitude towards humans is very different from others of the monster race. Do you not discriminate against humans? Discriminate? Why should I? The owner of the inn looked at Yang Kai with a smile. You humans are fine the way you are. This old man once knew a very special human when he was young. Yang Kai clearly saw a strong, almost inexhaustible tenderness flash across the old man's eyes at that moment. Yang Kai suddenly understood something then. Never mind. Just pretend I didn't say anything. Young man, take your time. This old man is getting on in years and needs to lie down for a while. The owner of the inn suddenly became somewhat disinterested in saying so, stood up to leave, his waist seemingly even more rickety than before. Yang Kai sighed at this sight. It seemed that when this inn owner was young, he was in love with a human woman. Love across races was something that was the subject of disgust in any place, not to mention this was Monster Emperor Star, where the monster race ruled supreme and humans had no status whatsoever. It was precisely because such love was forbidden in many places that interracial couples were often split apart and eventually forced into committing suicide, inspiring many an epic story. Yang Kai did not think too much about this issue, however, simply drinking a few glasses of wine before returning to his courtyard. After updating Xianxia, who was still studying alchemy, Yang Kai went straight to the city gate. According to the owner of the inn, it would be a few days before the maidservants from the palace came here to purchase supplies. But Yang Kai intended to get there ahead of time and come up with a way to send a message to Shanqing Luo, not far from Shimmering Moon City Gate, in a certain tea house. The location of this shop was good. One could see all the cultivators coming and going from the city gate. Yang Kai had already spent several days at this tea house without seeing any trace of the maidservants from the palace. On this day, just as he was sipping tea to pass the time, a commotion suddenly arose at the gate. The cultivators who were waiting in line to enter the city suddenly separated to the sides of the road, as if they were giving way to some important figure. There were also shouts coming from the crowd, and Yang Kai vaguely heard someone yelling, "They are here! Have the maidservants from the palace finally arrived?" Yang Kai immediately thought. The commotion at the city gate also reached the tea house, and the cultivators inside quickly began walking out and gathering on the street. It didn't take long before the spacious street was filled with people, all of them staring towards the city gate. Although there were many people, they were all practically silent. Yang Kai also walked out of the tea house, mixed into the crowd, and stared towards the city gate with a look of expectation, hoping he would find a suitable candidate to accept his request to deliver a message. The earth trembled slightly due to vibrations conveyed from afar, as if thousands of troops were marching towards here. Yang Kai frowned at this as he realized that things seemed a little different from what he thought. After all, if it was just a group of maidservants coming out to purchase supplies, there wouldn't be this much of a commotion. What's more, since these maidservants came once every month, the residents of Shimmering Moon City shouldn't be surprised by their arrival or be gathering around out of curiosity. Realizing this, Yang Kai felt a little disappointed. It seemed that the maidservant group wasn't coming today. However, he was still quite curious about who it was that had come to Shimmering Moon City to attract so many onlookers. A short while later, a majestic wolf-shaped monster beast charged in from outside. Atop this monster beast, there was a monster race cultivator that Yang Kai was familiar with. "Make way, make way!" The monster race cultivator rode into Shimmering Moon City and yelled loudly, waving a long whip in his hand to disperse the crowd on the streets further. Following closely behind him, more than a dozen wolf-shaped monster beasts appeared. Each of these monster beasts was mounted by a monster race cultivator, and all of them quickly began clearing out the crowds together with their leader. "Aren't they the monster race team I asked for directions a few days ago?" Yang Kai looked at the lead cultivator and quickly recalled. "Friend, which great sir has come to Shimmering Moon City? Why is such a fuss being raised?" A questioning voice suddenly came from the side. Obviously, the owner of this voice was also confused and was asking others for information. "I don't know," the person being questioned answered faintly, apparently also in the dark. "You don't know who is coming yet you still came out here to see them?" The questioner asked unhappily. "I just came to take a look without knowing. Aren't you the same?" N. Just as everyone was feeling confused and whispering amongst themselves, two giant heads suddenly entered the city gate. These two heads had large, single horns atop their head and were covered in dark-colored scales which looked particularly hard. Snake-like eyes exuding cold light glanced around the crowd, causing many to shudder in fear. "Those are—" a knowledgeable person immediately exclaimed as he saw through the origins of these two monster beasts. The full picture of these two monster beasts quickly appeared before everyone's eyes. Aside from their giant heads, these two monster beasts also had large wings on their backs and their bodies were covered in large dragon-like scales. Long tails flicked about behind them, seemingly containing explosive power. Ninth Order Thunderflame Flying Lizard Monster Beasts. Not all monster beasts had the ability to assume human form. Some monster beasts would maintain a beast form throughout their lives, and this Ninth Order Thunderflame Flying Lizard was obviously one of them. Amongst Ninth Order monster beasts it was a famous existence. Born proficient in both thunder and fire attributes, with a violent and cruel temper, even Second Order origin returning realm cultivators who encountered them would have no choice but to flee. There weren't many masters who were capable of subduing this type of monster beast. But now, these two thunder flame flying lizards had been reduced to beasts of burden. They were bound by their necks and their reins extended behind them to a luxuriously decorated carriage that was slowly entering shimmering Moon City. This carriage was very extremely ornate, and as its wheels turned, a faint jingle could be heard coming from it that was quite pleasing to the ear. The carriage had an open top with no doors or windows. Only some pink curtains hung around it. It seemed that the owner of this carriage enjoyed being seen and noticed by onlookers. There were 3 people in this carriage, but almost everyone's eyes focused on a single one at this moment. A man in white robes and a face like a jade carving sat on the soft couch of the carriage. The casual yet luxurious and majestic air around him unconsciously made those who saw him feel inferior. At first glance, most would only think that this man was particularly handsome, but the more one stared, the more they became transfixed. His eyes had a divine light to them that seemed to exude a peculiar power. Any woman who met eyes with him would begin to lose herself in them, like moths to a flickering flame, anxious to recklessly throw themselves at him. A stunning woman was laying her head on the man's lap as he used his delicate hand to stroke her luscious black hair. The woman's eyes were slightly squinted, revealing a look of extreme enjoyment, as if she were a pet that was basking in its owner's caress. Another woman was lying in the arms of the man, with the same dazzled look on her pretty face, a faint pink hue radiating from her skin as she panted slightly, her red lips shining with an amorous light. Although he was being watched by countless people, the man still smiled lightly. His eyes filled with a kind of wicked light that was capable of bewitching any woman he gazed upon, setting their heart aflame and drawing them in to offer their entire beings to him. "I know who he is. He's young Master Wicked Eyes. It's Thousand Eyes Tribal Lord's young Lord Meteon." An exclamation came from the crowd, revealing the lofty identity of the man sitting on the carriage. Many people recognized him, in fact. The complexions of all the men present changed drastically as the look in their eyes as they stared towards Meteon quickly went from curiosity to dread. This couldn't be helped. Young Master Wicked Eyes Meteon's reputation on Monster Emperor Star was really too terrifying. It was rumored that even if the number of women who had died at his hands wasn't 1,000, it was at least 800. Worse, these women weren't taken by force but offered their lives to him willingly. It was said that Meteon had cultivated some kind of secret technique that resembled gathering Yin to supplement Yang, and that any woman who spent the evening with him, no matter how outstanding, would be dead by morning. Even so, there was still no lack of women who rushed to accept Meteon's embrace. The most hateful thing about this Meteon was that whether they were human or monster race women, he accepted them all. With so many women having fallen prey to him, generally, no matter where Meteon went, men would not allow their women to come out and show their faces and would try their best to avoid having their lovers and relatives meet him. No one had heard that Meteon would be coming to Shimmering Moon City though, so no one had taken precautions. If they had known earlier, they would have avoided him like a viper rather than gathering around to greet him. But now, with these 2 Ninth Order Thunderflame flying lizards present, and Meteon already before their eyes, how could they do that? It was all over. Many cultivators looked towards their women and saw looks of admiration and desire as they stared at Meteon. Seeing this, these men wished they could rush up and shred Meteon's corpse into 10,000 pieces. But these were just their secret desires. Without even mentioning that Meteon was a third-order origin returning realm master, with few worthy to be his opponent, his two ninth-order monster beasts were also not to be provoked easily. Most importantly, there was a huge backer behind Meteon. Thousand Eyes Tribal Lord. With the father being a true origin king realm master, who would dare attack his son? Thousand Eyes Tribal Lord doted upon his son greatly. There was no other explanation for him giving Meteon two thunder flame flying lizards just to pull his carriage. Standing in the crowd, Xianxia also learned the identity of this man from the exclamations and discussions of the people around him. However, he couldn't help feeling the situation was a bit strange. Why would the Thousand Eyes Tribal Lord's favored son come to Red Moon territory? As far as Xianxia knew, the relationship between the 10 great tribal lords on Monster Emperor Star was not very harmonious. However, Xianxia merely found this curious and didn't think too deeply about it. After learning that the person who caused the commotion was not the group of maidservants he was waiting for, Xianxia's interest in watching faded completely. The look on young Master Wicked Eyes also annoyed Xianxia. It was a natural kind of arrogance that seemed to proclaim that all women in the world belonged to him. Xianxia wanted to turn around and leave, but after emerging from his own thoughts, he was immediately stunned. All the cultivators, who were originally standing on both sides of the street, were now down on one knee at the moment in order to respectfully welcome Meteon into the city. When Xianxia turned his head and looked around, his brows furrowed. He suddenly discovered that he was like a crane amongst chickens. There were countless onlookers present, but all of them were half kneeling on the ground right now, with only Xianxia standing around in a daze. Meteon glanced over and tilted his head up slightly at this sight. Even though he was just sitting on his carriage, staring down disdainfully at Xianxia from above, his eyes seemed to emit an oppressive aura. Bold! An angry shout came from the side as one of the monster race cultivators who was riding a wolf-shaped monster beast that had led Meteon into the city brought his mount in front of Xianxia and waved his long riding whip as he reproved. "Why have you not kneeled yet?" Saying so, he advanced towards Xianxia, as if he wanted to teach him a lesson. Xianxia just stared back at him indifferently though. The monster race cultivator was stunned as he suddenly recognized Xianxia's face. Wasn't this the human who had asked me for directions the other day? At that time, he had felt this human was somewhat unfathomable. Thinking so, the monster race cultivator slightly shook his wrist, and the whip he originally sent straight towards Xianxia deviated slightly, hitting the air and making a loud cracking sound. Since he could not figure out Xianxia's depths, he didn't dare to act rashly. On the other hand, he needed to maintain young Lord Meteon's face. After all the monster race masters here had knelt down to salute Meteon, but a trivial human actually remained standing. This was unacceptable. This was a naked display of contempt towards Meteon as well as an insult to the monster race as a whole. As such, this monster race cultivator was at a loss for a moment, not knowing what to do, quickly turning his eyes to Meteon for help. "Human, you're quite bold. You dare refuse to kneel in the presence of this young lord." Meteon smiled softly, seemingly harmless to humans and animals alike, but everyone could clearly hear the contempt in his words. Meteon's distinguished status and superb strength gave him the qualifications to act this way though. This human boy's fate would surely be miserable. Many cultivators thought so, and some could not help directing looks of sympathy towards Xianxia. Most in the crowd, however, were just taking pleasure in another's misfortune. With Xianxia attracting Meteon's attention, perhaps even the notorious young Master Wicked Eyes would not have any extra energy to pay attention to the various beautiful women in Shimmering Moon City. Thinking so, many people felt grateful to Xianxia and quietly pressed down the heads of the beautiful women next to them to prevent them from revealing their faces. "Kneel?" Xianxia chuckled, undauntedly meeting eyes with Meteon and asking, "Why? This shameless monster race boy actually wants me to kneel." Xianxia had rarely heard such wild words. In all honesty, Xianxia didn't want to stir up trouble on Monster Emperor Star, so if Meteon pretended not to see him and simply let this incident pass, things would have been fine. But now that conflict seemed inevitable, Xianxia was naturally not going to back down. Because you're human, Meteon sneered, releasing an aggressive air. Humans must kneel down when they see this young lord, as if feeling their master's anger. The thunder flame flying lizards pulling the carriage became violent and turned their gazes towards Xianxia while spraying hot air from their nostrils, their eyes filling with a bloodthirsty and cruel light. The complexions of the people around Xianxia changed drastically, and without hesitation, all of them scattered away, not daring to remain close to him, fearing that after the city gate caught fire, the fish in the moat would be affected. In an instant, with Xianxia as its center, 100-meter radius had become free of all others. Xianxia became more and more conspicuous. Human on Monster Emperor Star, you'd better not act so presumptuous, otherwise you'll pay a heavy price. Meteon looked at Xianxia indifferently. Even the two stunning women who were fawning on Meteon glared at Xianxia, as if blaming him for his rudeness. Monster Emperor Star is my monster race's territory. As for you humans, and it's best if you humans keep your heads lowered and remain obedient. However, this young lord is not a petty man. Since this is your first offense, I can treat it as if I never saw anything. Kneel down and this young lord will spare your life. Meteon pointed his finger downwards and declared in an imposing manner. And if I don't? Xianxia's eyes flashed a cold light as he stared back at Meteon with a smile. You have no choice. Meteon coldly snorted. As soon as he spoke these words, the thunder flame flying lizard on the left suddenly opened its jaw and a ball of flames wrapped in arcs of lightning shot out towards Xianxia. Feeling the horrific killing power of this thunder fireball, many cultivators were shocked. Although most of them had heard about the terrible power of thunder flame flying lizards before, few had seen one with their own eyes. Today was an eye-opening experience for them. No wonder second-order origin returning realm cultivators had no choice but to flee when they encountered a thunder flame flying lizard. This thunder fireball alone could not be resisted by ordinary origin returning realm masters. As the terrifying thunder fireball rushed towards his face, Xianxia simply stood in place, as if unaware of the approaching danger. It was not until the thunder fireball was right in front of him that he lifted his hand and grabbed towards it. Courting death. Many cultivators who saw this scene had such thoughts in their hearts. The attack of a thunder flame flying lizard was not so easily dealt with. It seemed there was something wrong with this boy's head, trying to take this attack head-on with nothing but his body. No wonder he dared challenge Meteon. A shocking scene appeared next, however. When Xianxia's hand grasped the thunder fireball, instead of him being directly burned to ashes as everyone expected, the thunder fireball froze in place. An extremely mysterious force burst forth at that instant, and in a flash, as if it was somehow being deflated, the terrifying thunder fireball shrank at an extremely rapid pace until it finally disappeared. Xianxia stood in place, completely unharmed. Gasps sounded from all around. Meteon also finally sat up, pushing the woman who was half lying on his lap out of the way as a look of interest flashed across his eyes. Not bad. A second-order origin returning realm. Meteon grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. No wonder you dare act so rampant. It turns out you have some small skill. The moment Xianxia acted, Meteon was able to detect Xianxia's cultivation. The second-order origin returning realm was not weak on Monster Emperor Star. Not to mention that this boy was a human. Monster Emperor Star was dominated by the monster race, and although there were abundant materials and world energy here, origin realm masters rarely emerged among humans, as those with high aptitude were generally strangled in the cradle. The monster race wouldn't allow human race masters to rise up. They allow humans to survive because they fancied the unique talents of the human race. But how could they permit the human race an opportunity to oppose the monster race's hegemony? So, after realizing that Xianxia was a second-order origin returning realm cultivator, Meteon suddenly became interested. Standing up on his carriage, he waved his hand and coldly ordered, "Kill him!" The two ninth-order monster beasts immediately became violent as they stood upright, opened their mouths, and gathered flame and lightning in preparation to attack. A panic ensued at the city gates as most of the cultivators gathered quickly fled. Yang Kai let out a defiant laugh as he shouted, "Two mere beasts dare act wild before me." Golden light flashed, and under the control of Yang Kai's divine sense, two golden blood threads shot out like arrows towards the thunder flame flying lizards. Two pillars of fire spurted from the mouths of the thunder flame flying lizards, greeting the golden blood threads head-on. However, these flame jets were unable to even impede the speed of the golden blood threads' charge. The flames which caused everyone else to pale in fright were actually unable to even damage the golden blood threads. In the blink of an eye, the golden blood threads shot into the thunder flame flying lizards' mouths. The next moment, the two ninth-order monster beasts roared as their massive bodies swayed from side to side, colliding with and collapsing all the nearby buildings. The golden blood threads which had rushed into their abdomens were still under Yang Kai's control, and were now wantonly cutting into these two beasts' bodies, causing unimaginable damage and pain to them. Yang Kai did not remain idle either as his figure flickered and rushed out, instantly arriving in the air above one of the thunder flame flying lizards' heads and sending out a punch. This punch seemed like a casual strike without any hidden power and mystery behind it. But when this fist hit the head of the thunder flame flying lizard, it was as if the huge monster beast had been struck by a 10-ton hammer. First, its skull distorted from the blow, then it crashed to the ground like a falling meteor. The entire city felt as if it shook from the impact. A big crater immediately appeared in the ground as the head of the thunder flame flying lizard sunk into it. Worthy of a ninth-order monster beast. However, even after its insides were torn up by a golden blood thread and its head was smashed by Yang Kai, it still had not died. On the contrary, it only grew fiercer, and with a thunderous roar, it spread its large wings and flapped hard, trying to escape from Yang Kai's range. Yang Kai's figure flickered again and arrived directly in front of the thunder flame flying lizard, planting his feet on its lower jaws while lifting his hands up towards the sky, holding up the upper palate of the thunder flame flying lizard's giant maw. What is he doing? The onlookers were all stunned as they gawked at Yang Kai in shock. From his posture, it looked as if he wanted to rip this ninth-order monster beast in half. But the tiny body of a human formed a sharp contrast with the giant mouth of the thunder flame flying lizard. No one doubted this thunder flame flying lizard could swallow down this human boy whole. Yang Kai's body was bent like a shrimp, and his exposed muscles were clearly bulging out, as if exerting an unimaginable strength. He and thunder flame flying lizard were now having a simple competition of strength. Everyone thought Yang Kai was crazy. It was well known that in terms of physical strength, the monster race was born with a decisive advantage, not to mention a huge ninth-order monster beast such as this thunder flame flying lizard. In particular, the bite force of the thunder flame flying lizard was truly astonishing. Yang Kai taking the initiative to enter this monster beast's mouth was nothing short of challenging the thunder flame flying lizard's greatest strength. Was there something wrong with this guy's head? Many people could not help wondering to themselves. However, the results of this contest came quickly and were completely beyond everyone's predictions. Just as the crowd was suspecting if Yang Kai had some kind of mental issues, his bent body suddenly straightened up. In an astonishing burst of strength, the giant mouth of the thunder flame flying lizard failed to stop Yang Kai's body from uncurling. The huge jaw curved unnaturally before suddenly its upper half flew up while its lower half crashed to the ground. Xiaila, with blood splattering through the air, the thunder flame flying lizard's head split in two, its muscles and tendons pulled apart by an unstoppable force right before everyone's eyes. The audience went silent as they all stared sluggishly at Yang Kai, as if their heads could not keep up with what their eyes were seeing. If someone said that Yang Kai was a monster race master renowned for his physical strength, this scene might be explainable, but he was just a human. Can humans really have such terrifying power? With a loud thud, the thunder flame flying lizard's huge body fell to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Yang Kai stood midair, covered in blood, an astonishing murderous aura pulsing from his body, like a god of slaughter from ancient times, causing all who saw him to shudder. Turning his head to the other thunder flame flying lizard that was currently rushing over towards him, Yang Kai grinned menacingly. Although this thunder flame flying lizard was unable to assume human form, Its sentience wasn't low. So when it saw its companion killed by this human in such a brutal and unbelievable way, how could it dare get any closer? With a low growl from its throat, this beast beat its wings violently, trying to stop itself from advancing. It was too late, however. Xianxia dashed forward and arrived in front of the second thunderflame flying lizard, twisted his body, and dove straight into its open mouth. In the next moment, a terrifying sound came from inside the thunderflame flying lizard, causing those who heard it to shiver uncontrollably. Visible to the naked eye, a surge of energy burst from the beast's neck before sliding down to its abdomen. Honk! A giant hole suddenly exploded in the abdomen of the thunderflame flying lizard, and Xianxia's figure sprang from it. The second thunderflame flying lizard crashed to the ground, its life aura extinguished. Everything happened too fast. From the point Meteon ordered Xianxia's death, to the time Xianxia killed the two thunderflame flying lizards, only 3 breaths passed. This change happened so fast the crowd was not even able to keep up with what was happening. It was not until Xianxia burst out of the abdomen of the second thunderflame flying lizard that they suddenly recovered. 2 extremely powerful ninth-order monster beasts had died just like that. Were those really thunderflame flying lizards? They were not some kind of weak monster beast that just looked like thunderflame flying lizards, right? Right? This kind of thought flashed across everyone's mind as they stared blankly at Xianxia. The violent and brutal fighting style he displayed dazzled and terrified everyone present. Battles between monster race cultivators were known for being wild and violent, something most monster race cultivators took pride in. They felt that battles between the monster race were real battles. As for fights between humans, they were just fancy shows. However, the human in front of them, confronting young Lord Meteon, had shocked the crowd with a true display of ruthless violence. The audience was stunned silent. Even Meteon now stared at Xianxia solemnly. He found that this human was not affable. Although the 2 thunderflame flying lizards used to pull his carriage had lost of their innate ferocity, because they had been domesticated since childhood and weren't comparable to monster beasts of the same species who were born and raised in the wild, they weren't creatures a mere second-order origin returning realm cultivator could kill at will. In front of Meteon's eyes, the 2 monster beasts who had pulled his carriage had both died without even being able to put up the slightest resistance. Meteon thought for a moment and concluded that even he could not replicate this feat. Releasing his divine sense suspiciously, he probed Xianxia but still found that this human had a second-order origin realm cultivation and was not hiding his strength at all. Meteon narrowed his eyes as a cold light flashed across them, his blood starting to boil slightly as he did. The monster race was militant, and Meteon, as the young master of Thousand Eyes tribal lord, still had bloodthirsty and violent impulses ingrained in his bones. Due to his noble status, he was simply better at controlling them than others of his race. However, at this moment, he felt Xianxia would be a good opponent, one he could fight without holding back. A slight noise suddenly rang out from Meteon's body, one that was nearly imperceptible, but almost like every part of his body was shaking very subtly. This was a sign of excitement. What's going on here? At that moment, several rays of light flew over from afar, and before these people arrived, an angry shout rang out. Immediately, these rays of light fell in front of the crowd, and after seeing the monster beast bodies as well as the tense atmosphere in front of the city gate, these newcomers could not help gawking momentarily. Sir Ma-Gu-Na, the monster race cultivator, who was riding the wolf-shaped mount, hurriedly got down and respectfully saluted these new arrivals. The city lord of Shimmering Moon City was a monster race master named Ma-Gu-Na. As the master of such a prosperous city, he naturally had a third-order origin returning realm cultivation. However, even though he was the city lord of Shimmering Moon City, he knew nothing about what had transpired here, or even about the arrival of Meteon. It was not that Ma-Gu-Na was particularly ignorant of his surroundings. It was just that Meteon had acted too unreasonably. Originally, the team of cultivators riding wolf-shaped monster beasts were only responsible for finding Meteon's whereabouts and then reporting back. Afterwards, a proper reception would be sent out to escort him directly to the city lord's mansion. But Mi Tian had refused to allow these monster race cultivators to send word back to Ma Guna, and after meeting them, coerced them into bringing him directly to Shimmering Moon City. Obviously, he was well aware of his poor reputation and that everyone would try to avoid him wherever he went. So in order to not have news leak, giving the residents of Shimmering Moon City time to hide their beauties, he did not allow anyone to inform Shimmering Moon City's city lord of his location. Mi Tian planned to first patronize Shimmering Moon City and pick out some new toys before heading to Red Moon Tribal Lord's Palace. His plan was quite good, but unexpectedly he had run into and provoked Yang Kai the moment he entered the city, resulting in his 2 ninth order monster beasts being killed. Young Lord Mi Tian? Ma Guna recognized Mi Tian's identity immediately, and his complexion became gloomy. Obviously, he too didn't want to invite Mi Tian into his city to cause trouble. Haha! Mi Tian greets Senior Ma Guna. Mi Tian has arrived here uninvited and hopes Senior won't take offense. Mi Tian cupped his fists, his seemingly harmless, bright smile causing countless women to swoon. What's all this about? Ma Guna calmly looked at the monster race cultivator who had been riding his wolf-shaped mount. The monster race cultivator leaked cold sweat as he could tell the city lord was very upset and didn't dare to conceal anything, quickly and succinctly explaining everything that had transpired. Impudence! After hearing that Yang Kai had killed Mi Tian's monster beasts, Ma Guna suddenly roared as he glared sharply at Yang Kai. Although he did not like the idea of Mi Tian womanizing in his territory, a human daring to challenge a noble of the monster race was definitely not something he could tolerate. Comparing the two issues, his displeasure with Mi Tian showing up uninvited was nothing of concern. However, who exactly was this young human, who was capable of killing 2 ninth order monster beasts in such a short time? The strength required for such a feat was quite extraordinary. Staring at Yang Kai suspiciously, Ma Guna was unable to remember when such an expert appeared amongst the human race. Yang Kai straight up ignored him, however, and instead silently stood for a moment before waving his hand and retrieving 2 golden lights from the dead thunder flame flying lizards. These 2 golden lights danced around Yang Kai's fingertips, as if they had spirituality. Looking at these 2 golden blood threads, which now had a hint of red in them too, Yang Kai smiled with satisfaction. He had been unable to find suitable monster beasts to condense blood beast from, but suddenly ran into 2 perfect specimens, so when Mi Tian picked a fight, Yang Kai had not hesitated to respond. The blood beast secret technique, which was condensed from the essence of a 9th order monster beast, was not bad. After he took the golden blood threads back, the corpses of the 2 thunder flame flying lizards on the ground suddenly shriveled, as if wilting away, their vitality and essence all drained clean in an instant. Mi Tian's eyes lit up. What secret technique is this? He seemed to be quite interested as he directed a look of surprise towards the 2 golden blood threads dancing between Yang Kai's fingers, his eyes not even blinking. Although he was a noble amongst the monster race, Mi Tian was quite interested in the various secret techniques humans used. Humans were not comparable to the monster race in terms of physical strength, but when it came to the creation and use of secret techniques, the monster race was clearly inferior. Both races had their own advantages. Mi Tian understood this well, and was different from many monster race masters in that he did not reject or despise the secret techniques used by humans. He did not think they were merely flashy with no substance and instead was willing to calmly study and comprehend them. With the powerful body of the monster race, combined with the human race's ever-changing and mysterious secret techniques, Mi Tian believed that one day, he could create his own unique style of fighting and reach greater heights than even his father Chen Yen to stand atop Monster Emperor Star's 10 great tribal lords. This position had been vacant for a long time. Now, he was quite interested in Yang Kai's golden blood thread secret technique. He had studied the secret techniques of many humans before, so his vision was quite sharp, and he was able to tell how extraordinary these 2 golden blood threads were at a glance. Moreover, after emerging from the thunder flame flying lizard corpses, these 2 golden blood threads seemed to have gained spirituality. He had to obtain them. This overbearing thought flashed across Mi Tian's mind, and he quickly pointed at Yang Kai and said, "Human, give this young lord those things in your hand, and this young lord will forgive your previous transgressions." Yang Kai raised his eyes and looked at him, curled his lips and grinned, a moment later taking back the 2 golden blood threads as he said concisely, "No!" Meteon frowned and stared at him strangely for a moment before chuckling lowly. "Human, is there something wrong with your head? Do you think that, after killing this young lord's 2 monster beasts, you can just walk away? Do you think you can leave Shimmering Moon City alive? If you want to survive, obediently cooperate with this young lord and I can spare your life. Don't you refuse a toast just to drink a loss." As he spoke, Shimmering Moon City's city lord Ma Guna and several origin returning realm masters nearly turned dangerous glares towards Yang Kai, preparing to take action at any moment. Regarding Yang Kai, Ma Guna unconditionally supported Meteon. As such, he stared at Yang Kai with an unkind look and said coldly, "Boy, you should learn to appreciate kindness. In my Shimmering Moon City, you can't act so presumptuous." Presumptuous? Yang Kai narrowed his eyes at him, not giving him the slightest face as he declared arrogantly and aggressively, "So what if I act presumptuously? Are you going to bite me?" Bold. Ma Guna flew into a rage. He had lived for so many years but had never met such an audacious human before. Even taking all of Monster Emperor Star into account, which other human was so ignorant of the immensity of heaven and earth? No matter how powerful a human was, they would have to show deference to any monster race, let alone a city lord like him. Ma Guna glanced over at Meteon, and Meteon happened to look over at the same time. When their eyes met, they both understood each other's thoughts. They needed to join forces to capture or kill this human, otherwise the entire monster race would lose all face here today. But before they could act, a strange energy fluctuation suddenly erupted from somewhere in Shimmering Moon City. Meteon and Ma Guna were both third-order origin returning realm masters, so naturally they immediately detected this disturbance. What puzzled them, however, was they could not identify what had caused this strange energy fluctuation. Yang Kai, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes as he raised his head and glanced in the direction the energy fluctuations had appeared, frowning as he pondered for a moment before thinking of something and dashing off. His speed was nothing less than quick. "Stop right here!" Ma Guna roared furiously, throwing out a punch the moment Yang Kai moved in an attempt to intercept him. A gleam of purple light suddenly appeared as Yang Kai summoned his purple shield and easily blocked the blow, not even slowing down as he rushed off. He had a bad premonition about this situation, so how could he waste any time here? As his figure flickered, space force fluctuations wrapped around his body, and in the blink of an eye, Yang Kai disappeared. Ma Guna and Meteon were left stunned. Neither of them had seen how Yang Kai left just now. Their eyes and divine senses were obviously locked onto him, but the other party had somehow easily thrown them off. The 2 monster race masters couldn't help showing solemn looks, and after exchanging another glance, they both rushed off towards the source of the strange energy fluctuations. They too wanted to know what had happened and why such a strange phenomenon had appeared. In front of a certain inn inside Shimmering Moon City, a large number of cultivators had gathered. These cultivators were all attracted here by the strange occurrence that was happening. There were human and monster race cultivators, males and females. At this moment, everyone was standing around in the street in front of the inn, pointing and whispering amongst themselves. When Yang Kai arrived here, he looked up into the sky and immediately showed a helpless, wry smile. His premonition was right. The owner of the inn was also standing in front of the inn, his waist as rickety as always as his arms were folded across his chest. Like most people, he was looking up into the sky with a complicated expression flashing across his face and a glint in his eyes as if he was trying to discern something. When Yang Kai arrived, the old owner immediately noticed him and he hurriedly beckoned. "Come here, young man." Yang Kai glanced over at him and quickly rushed to his side, a somewhat apologetic look on his face as he said, "Old sir, I'm afraid I've caused you some trouble." The old man chuckled and shook his head. "This old man's troubles aren't worth mentioning. It's your troubles that seem somewhat big." Saying so, the old man glanced lightly over at the 2 monster race masters, Ma Guna and Meteon, who had arrived at some point. The corners of the old man's mouth couldn't help but twitch as he added, "Your troubles don't seem to be limited to what's happening in the inn either." "Ha ha." Yang Kai laughed dryly, not knowing what to say. If it was just about Ma Guna and Mi Tian targeting him, Yang Kai wouldn't care. All he would need to do is take little senior sister with him and tear space to escape them completely. Monster Emperor Star was so big that there would always be a place for them to hide. What's more, if it was someone below the Origin King realm, Yang Kai didn't need to fear. If they really fought, Yang Kai wouldn't mind turning all of Shimmering Moon City upside down. But now, the vision in front of him gave him a headache. After coming here, he could see at a glance that this phenomenon was caused by little senior sister. Xianing Chong had been living in the inn these days, leading a simple life of refining pills from various materials and improving her cultivation. Yang Kai didn't disturb her either. He had never expected that, in this place, little senior sister would actually refine such an incredible pill. Yang Kai had a similar experience before, so he could tell that this startling phenomenon was a precursor to the refinement of a pill that formed pill clouds. When Yang Kai was back on Rainfall Star, he had refined a fire attribute pill that formed pill clouds in order to treat Shui Yu, who had been poisoned by the profounding sunflower water, and a very similar phenomenon had appeared at that time. Of all the pills Yang Kai had refined so far, only that particular one had formed pill clouds, and it was after that experience he deeply learned that pill clouds weren't something one can seek but can only encounter by luck. This was different from pill veins, as with Yang Kai's alchemy skills he could easily refine a pill that formed pill veins. However, the exact method to consistently refine pills that formed pill clouds was still a mystery to him. With little senior sister's special constitution and her heaven-defying talent in the alchemic way, reaching this point was almost a given. But this was Monster Emperor Star, and they were currently inside Shimmering Moon City. Once this pill was refined, it would definitely attract the attention of countless masters, especially Ma Guna and Mi Tian, who were just quarreling with Yang Kai. These two would definitely not let go of this pill. They also wouldn't let Xianing Chong go free. An alchemist who could refine a pill that formed pill clouds had obviously reached an astonishing height in the alchemic way, and was well deserving of the title of Grandmaster. How could the monster race not try to possess such a heaven-defying talent? Yang Kai's expression fluctuated as various thoughts flashed across his mind, considering the stakes of the situation at hand. He couldn't stop Xianing Chong now. Chance and opportunities were extremely important in alchemy, and little senior sister being able to complete this refinement would have enormous benefits to her growth. To stop her now would be tantamount to denying her all the enlightenments this opportunity would bring, and may even negatively affect her future achievements. No matter what, she had to finish refining this pill successfully. It seems, what came next would truly be troublesome. After making up his mind, Yang Kai's eyes became as cold and sharp as a blade. Both Ma Guna and Mi Tian were staring blankly at the sky as right above the inn, a massive amount of world energy was gathering, as if attracted by something, and it wasn't long before a small vortex appeared, rotating slowly as it absorbed and drew in more world energy to strengthen itself. Senior Ma Guna, what is this? Is some kind of rare treasure about to form? Although Mi Tian had sharp eyesight, he had never witnessed the refinement of a pill that formed pill clouds. So he was completely lost at this moment and had to defer to an elder like Ma Guna. Ma Guna frowned as he continued staring up into the sky, trying to determine what had caused this phenomenon. But after some time he slowly shook his head slowly. This city lord also does not know. Even Senior is unable to recognize what is happening? Mi Tian was surprised. The world is vast and filled with innumerable strange phenomena, so it is not surprising this city lord does not recognize this particular one. And can anyone here identify what is happening? Ma Guna turned to the other Origin returning realm masters and asked. Everyone shook their heads one after another, all of them never having witnessed something like this before. Interesting. Mi Tian smiled brightly, flashing his flawless teeth just the right amount to emphasize his handsome face. His somewhat wicked appearance dazzling many of them women present who were secretly casting him glances. From the looks of it, it doesn't seem like someone is breaking through or cultivating some kind of secret technique. It also doesn't look like the birth of some rare treasure. So what could be the cause? The solution is simple. We just need to take a look. One of Ma Guna's second-order origin returning realm subordinates declared as he unscrupulously released his divine sense towards the inn. But before his divine sense could reach the outer walls, this master suddenly noticed a dangerous aura strike towards him and, in the next instant, he felt his divine sense being scorched by a kind of burning heat. With a scream, this monster race master couldn't help stumbling backwards a few steps as he clutched his head, a splitting headache causing his face to pale. Instantly, all eyes turned to Xianxia. Everyone had felt that it was Xianxia who just released that divine sense attack and forced this man back, causing him to suffer greatly. Ma Guna's expression turned incredibly gloomy as Metian flashed a playful grin. That was just a warning. If anyone dares try to spy on what's happening inside, don't blame me for being impolite. Xianxia stood alone in front of everyone, his voice cold and callous. Right now was a critical moment for little senior sister, one that even he dared not peek on. So how could Xianxia allow these monster race cultivators to use their divine sense to pry? What if they interfered with Xianxia's alchemy? Xianxia and the monster race master were both second-order origin realm cultivators, but when it came to a competition of divine sense, the monster race man was vastly inferior. Realizing this, Ma Guna and Metian's already high evaluation of Xianxia rose significantly once more. Boy! Ma Guna's deep voice boomed. Are you really so determined to oppose my monster race? You have courage and strength, but you're too overconfident. Metian chuckled lightly as he sneered. Xianxia didn't speak and instead just stared at them coldly. No one doubted Xianxia's determination, and the monster race masters who had just now wanted to use their divine senses to spy on what was happening in the inn quickly dismissed such thoughts, a faint trace of fear flashing across their eyes. Obviously, this human did not have a build comparable to those from the monster race, but with him standing there, all the monster race's cultivators felt as if they were staring at a tall and solid mountain, blocking all wind and rain from reaching the inn behind him. While some monster race cultivators felt fear towards Xianxia, others actually felt a hint of admiration. Not every human was so bold, daring to use their strength to face so many monster race masters without backing down. Good, good, good. Boy, you don't put the city lord or the monster race in your eyes, and you even dare to pose young Lord Metian. So today this place will be your burial ground. I hope you are prepared. Ma Guna could no longer bear it. He was already dissatisfied with Xianxia, and now seeing him take such a domineering stance, how could Ma Guna compromise? Right now, his priority was to kill this human boy. As for what mysteries were hidden in the inn, it wouldn't be too late to investigate afterwards. Boy, your death has come. Metian snickered towards Xianxia as murderous intent flashed across his eyes. He seemed to be calm and carefree, but how could he not be angry with Xianxia for killing his two ninth-order monster beasts? Now that he had an opportunity to team up with Ma Guna against this enemy, Metian was naturally going to take it. All the other origin returning realm masters began condensing their energy in preparation to attack Xianxia as well. You want my life? Let's see if you have the ability. Xianxia coldly snorted as an invisible force centered around him suddenly spread out. All the cultivators who were wrapped up in this force felt themselves being suppressed and their bodies becoming sluggish, as if they had fallen into a pit of mud. Even the Saint Qi in their meridians was no longer flowing smoothly. Sure. As soon as Xianxia released his sure, Ma Guna couldn't help paling slightly. He was shocked to discover that even his own attainments in sure were inferior to this human youth. How was that possible, though? He was a third-order origin returning realm master, while this human boy had only reached the second order. Although it was only one minor realm of difference, this should have been an insurmountable gap, so why was this boy's sure stronger than his own? Many monster race cultivators already released their own sure to resist Xianxia's, but even so, none of them could completely counter the invisible suppression they were facing. On top of that, every monster race cultivator had noticed that in the sure of this human boy, there was a special power mixed in. This power sent chills down their spines, as if they would be cut down so long as they moved. Xianxia's space force had been integrated into his sure, and was one of the strongest cards in his hand that he would not expose unless absolutely necessary. Even so, the monster race masters who were enveloped by Xianxia's sure could still feel a strange, invisible murderous intent swirling around them. Ma Guna's complexion had gone pale, while Mi Tian's expression was also solemn. The two monster race masters had not expected Yang Kai's comprehension of Shi to be so profound, and recalling how great his physical strength and divine sense were as well, for a while, they didn't dare to act rashly. On the contrary, it was the owner of the inn whose eyes were originally somewhat dispirited that suddenly lit up as he stared at Yang Kai in surprise. Immediately, he raised his head again and carefully studied the phenomenon occurring in the sky while sniffing the air lightly. Soon, he seemed to have discovered something, and amazement flashed across the depths of his eyes. "Stop!" he shouted. "Everyone calm down." Yang Kai glanced over at him with a strange expression. Ma Guna frowned deeply, as a look of anger appeared on his face. He was the city lord of Shimmering Moon City, and in this place, none should be able to posture before him or order him around, much less an old innkeeper. When his divine sense swept over this old man and found no trace of cultivation, Ma Guna became even more unhappy. "Old man, you have no right to speak here. Step aside." Mi Tian snorted coldly. "Ha ha!" The innkeeper did not show the slightest fear, instead just chuckling lightly as he glanced over at Mi Tian profoundly. Mi Tian frowned in that instant as he instinctively felt something was wrong. Staring at the innkeeper suspiciously, he hesitated before asking, "Where has this young lord met you before? Why does your face seem somewhat familiar?" Being able to see some clues so quickly. "Worthy of Sir Chen Yan's son, your eyesight is indeed extraordinary." The owner of the inn applauded, taking a tone of an elder complimenting a junior. This caused Mi Tian's expression to sink as he demanded in a low voice, "Who are you?" Ma Guna was also stunned. He had never thought about the owner of a little-known inn in his city possessing some kind of shocking background. If this old man did not possess extraordinary status, there was no way he would address Mi Tian in such a manner. Observing this situation, Yang Kai could not help grinning slightly. This old innkeeper attracting everyone's attention was something Yang Kai more than welcomed in this situation. Of course, Yang Kai was also quite curious about the origins of this innkeeper who obviously gave off no energy fluctuations from his body. However, since he could speak freely in front of Ma Guna and Mi Tian without any fear, it was clear this old man was no ordinary monster race master. The old man smiled faintly and then, in front of everyone's eyes, underwent a jaw-dropping transformation. His rickety waist slowly straightened up, and his short body grew taller. His dry, wrinkled skin became rosy with a healthy complexion, and the creases on his face all smoothed out. He seemed to become several dozen years younger at that moment, going from an old man to a middle-aged one. What's more, as his body shape changed, his aura also changed drastically. Originally, when anyone swept this man with their divine sense, they would detect no energy fluctuations and would assume he was just an old monster race man that had never cultivated. But at this moment, a powerful aura radiated from his body and continued to increase in intensity until it reached the peak of the third-order origin returning realm. Even compared with Ma Guna or Mi Tian, this middle-aged man was clearly superior. Yang Kai stared at the innkeeper in a daze, almost unable to believe his eyes. Ma Guna and Mi Tian were also stunned, never having expected that someone in this world would be capable of concealing themselves this deeply. If not for the innkeeper taking the initiative to expose himself, no one present would have ever seen through his depth. Are you Sir Bahi?" Ma Guna took a closer look at the face of the innkeeper before calling out in shock. After the innkeeper's face changed, Ma Guna recognized him almost immediately, and his voice could not help shaking as a terrified expression filled his face. "What? He's actually Sir Bahi." "Impossible. Wasn't Sir Bahi killed by the Lady Tribal Lord herself? Why is he still living?" "No, it's true, he is Sir Bahi. When Sir City Lord and I went to the palace to see Lady Tribal Lord 200 years ago, we were fortunate enough to greet him once. At that time, he was still Lady Tribal Lord's first general. To think this is Sir Bahi. Things have become too interesting." All kinds of shouts came from all around, causing Yang Kai's brow to furrow slightly when he heard them. He could clearly see that this innkeeper had quite a reputation, and even Ma Guna was respectful towards him. Who was this guy? Why was everyone saying he was Red Moon Tribal Lord's strongest general, but also saying he was killed by her? What was the truth? Yang Kai was both confused and puzzled. So, it is Senior Bahi. Mi Tian took a deep breath. No wonder Senior looked familiar. Mi Tian greets Senior Bahi. Although they were both third-order origin returning realm cultivators, Bahi's seniority and status was higher than any other monster race cultivator present. Even the young tribal Lord Mi Tian didn't dare neglect etiquette. Haha. Young Lord Mi Tian need not be so polite. You are a rising star of my monster race and have a great chance of breaking through to the Origin King realm in the future, Bahi praised. Mi Tian smiled faintly and replied, Senior Bahi's words are slightly mistaken. This young lord does not have a great chance of breaking through but will certainly break through. It is just a matter of time. This boy was certainly arrogant. Yang Kai glanced at him and chuckled to himself. However, it was undeniable that Mi Tian had the capital to back up his confidence. He just gently nodded. Then I wish you the best in achieving your lofty goals. Sir Bahi. Ma Guna leaked some cold sweat from his forehead as he stared at this man who had disappeared for almost 200 years, then at the strange phenomenon up in the sky. What exactly is happening inside? What's happening? Bahi hesitated for a moment before saying, I don't know the exact situation, but it's best everyone be patient for now and not cause any disturbance. This old master is the owner of this inn, so he has a responsibility to protect it and its guests. So I must ask all of you to give this old master some face. Since Sir Bahi has said so, let us wait. Ma Guna nodded. In front of Bahi, he did not dare act presumptuously. What about this human? Mi Tian suddenly turned to Yang Kai and sneered. Does Senior Bahi also wish to protect his safety? Naturally, this young man is also my guest, Bahi replied lightly. Haha, then Mi Tian will give the senior face, but that is limited to right here, right now. He killed my 2 monster beasts, so sooner or later that account must be settled. Mi Tian laughed as he aggressively stared at Yang Kai and declared, Human, don't let this young lord find an opportunity, otherwise. Yang Kai snorted disdainfully, not caring about Mi Tian's threat at all. Right now, making sure no one disturbed Xianxia was his top priority. Everything else came second. If they could calm the surrounding storm, no matter who it was, Yang Kai could not hope for more. But what exactly was Bahi's objective here? Yang Kai pondered as he observed this innkeeper. From the onlookers just now, Yang Kai had vaguely heard some secrets and knew that this Bahi had been in hiding for the past 200 years. But now he had suddenly revealed his identity and was intentionally shielding him and Xianxia. What were his intentions for doing so? Yang Kai obviously did not believe Bahi was doing this just to protect his inn's guests. The older people become, the wilier they behave. No one holds up such righteous principles. Hey, what's this fragrance? Suddenly, an exclamation came from the crowd. It smells so refreshing, almost like the scent of a pill. Is an extremely high-quality pill being refined? Could it be that this phenomenon was caused by alchemy? A single comment stirred up 1,000 waves as everyone clamored to give their opinion. Xianxia's alchemy had created an incredibly conspicuous and magnificent phenomenon, but in its early stages, not many were capable of identifying it. Even masters with extensive knowledge such as Ma Guna and Mi Tian couldn't recognize the cause, but as time passed, and a strong medicinal fragrance began to diffuse, what was happening inside the inn could no longer be concealed. As the intensity of the pill fragrance increased, almost everyone began casting fiery eyes towards the inn. Everyone had already discerned that this fragrance was originating from this seemingly simple inn. Almost every cultivator present had an infatuated and intoxicated look on their face. Just smelling this medicinal fragrance was enough to give people a feeling of enlightenment, so what kind of effect would eating such a pill have? Also, just what kind of pill could produce such a potent fragrance and create such an astonishing vision? The eyes of many cultivators gradually become fiery and filled with greed. If it weren't for Bahi, Ma Guna, and the other masters standing in front of the inn, it was likely it would already have been destroyed by a rush of onlookers trying to get their hands on this pill. Young Lord Metion, after judging that the vision in front of him was indeed caused by alchemy, Ma Gu-na quietly glanced over at Metion and sent him a message with his divine sense. This old dog Ba, he seems to want to monopolize this pill. No wonder he did not hesitate to reveal his identity today after concealing himself for over 200 years. Obviously, the pill about to form is no trivial thing, but I don't know which human alchemist is responsible for refining it, Metion responded coldly. Then if he wants to monopolize it, he needs to have the ability. 200 years ago, he fell out of favor with Red Moon Tribal Lord, but somehow managed to escape with his life and conceal himself. Since he has exposed himself today, his good days are over. Presumably, even if we kill him, Lady Qi, you will not blame us. Ah, good. We'll act according to young Lord Metion's intentions, Ma Gu-na replied. Although he didn't like Metion's style, it was undeniable that joining hands with him now was his best choice. After all, Bahi's prestige was too strong, and if he were to remain alone, Ma Gu-na wouldn't have the guts to fight against Bahi. As for who would ultimately obtain this pill, this was Shimmering Moon City was his territory, so how could Metion compete with him for it? The two monster race masters had decided to wait until the pill was finished being refined before taking action. How could a pill coveted by a master like Bahi not be valuable? No matter what, they had to snatch it. Perhaps after consuming this pill they would be able to break through the third-order origin returning realm in one fell swoop and reach the origin king realm. After all, Bahi had reached the peak of the third-order origin returning realm more than 200 years ago, and was well known as the most likely on Monster Emperor Star to break through and reach the status of Tribal Lord. As Ma Gu-na and Metion were communicating secretly, Bahi glanced over at them seemingly unintentionally and flashed a faint smile. Young man, don't you want to go to the palace to visit your old friend? Bahi suddenly sent a divine sense message to Yang Kai. Old sir. Rather, what advice does Senior Bahi have? Yang Kai looked at him suspiciously, wondering why the other party had suddenly mentioned this. I don't have anything as exaggerated as advice, but this old master does have a way to ensure that you enter the palace safely. Really? Yang Kai's eyes lit up. Indeed, but this method has some risks to it. If you believe this old master will act immediately. If not, just pretend I hadn't said anything. Haha, junior and senior only just met. Believing or not believing in one another need not be mentioned. Yang Kai was no longer a hot-blooded young man who would easily believe an unfamiliar person. Having such concerns is natural, but honestly, this method also has certain risks for this old master. If you can cooperate with this old master can promise that as long as he still lives, no harm will come to you. Yang Kai frowned slightly, but after pondering for a moment, he said, Can Senior explain his plan first? Certainly. Bahi agreed easily, not trying to bargain back and forth, and bluntly explained his plan to Yang Kai. After Yang Kai finished listening, his brow furrowed even deeper. There are indeed some risks, but Senior has apparently thought this matter through quite thoroughly. However, if we act according to Senior's plan, will we, Senior sister and junior brother, be able to maintain our freedom? Then you're refusing? Bahi asked disappointedly. No, I accept. Senior can act freely. Yang Kai grinned. Bahi glanced at him in amazement, seemingly not having expected that Yang Kai would act so rashly. Although Bahi wasn't worried about failure and was certain he could gain Yang Kai access to Red Moon Tribal Lord's palace with his plan, to Yang Kai and the woman performing alchemy in the inn, it was not necessarily a good deed. Bahi had been prepared to be rejected. But unexpectedly, Yang Kai had easily agreed. Bahi stared at Yang Kai with a weird expression, secretly feeling that this human boy was simply too fearless. But since he had already agreed, that really wasn't his concern anymore. Thinking so, Bahi smiled lightly and opened his mouth to say out loud, This pill is clearly still being refined, yet the phenomenon it inspired is already so magnificent, so there is no doubt it will be a supreme pill. Also, judging from the richness of this fragrance, this pill must at least be origin grade. What Sir Bahi said makes sense. Ma Guna agreed casually, not understanding what Ba he was plotting. I believe only Lady Tribal Lord is qualified to possess such a pill. What does City Lord Ma Guna think? Ba he smiled as he glanced over. Indeed. Ma Guna frowned more deeply, faintly feeling something was wrong. The alchemist who refined this pill must also be a Grandmaster-level figure. Ma Guna nodded, a bad premonition welling up in his heart as he suddenly understood what Ba he was implying. Lady Tribal Lord has always regarded such talents extremely highly, and the palace has spared no efforts to recruit them over the years. It seems you've received a stroke of good fortune, now that such a talent has appeared in Shimmering Moon City. Ma Guna, with your savvy, surely you must know what to do next. Ba he looked at Ma Guna with a smile. The latter wore a solemn expression as he said loudly, Many thanks for your advice, sir. This Ma Guna understands. After this Grandmaster finishes refining this pill, I will escort him to the Lady Tribal Lord's palace personally. And, as long as you please Lady Tribal Lord, the reward you receive will not be small. Ba he chuckled. Upon hearing this, Ma Guna's eyes lit up and he smiled more naturally, quickly cupping his fists and saying, Fortunately, sir has such far-sighted vision. After saying so, he shouted loudly, Come! A group of monster race masters immediately rushed over. Disperse all the miscellaneous people here and kill anyone who dares to approach within a 100-meter radius of this inn. No one is to disturb the alchemy grandmaster inside. Yes, to the side. Meteon froze up in a dumbfounded state. The agreement he had just secretly reached with Ma Guna had been destroyed by a few words from Ba he. Not only that, but Ma Guna had also thoroughly changed to Ba he's side, and even took the initiative to provide guards to protect the alchemist inside the inn. Ba he had no intention to covet the pill being refined, and on the contrary, seemed intent on delivering this alchemy grandmaster to the palace. The monster race was not proficient in alchemy. This was a well-known fact. However, while humans might be suppressed on Monster Emperor Star, masters who were skilled in alchemy would frequently appear. Red Moon Tribal Lord protected humans within her territory and allowed them some space to develop because she wanted to obtain these humans with special talents. Alchemists, artifact refiners, etc. Every 10 years, alchemy and artifact refining competitions were held in Red Moon territory, and those humans who stood out were able to shed their lowly status, move into the palace, and serve the tribal lord. Chi Yu's palace had constantly been recruiting such talents over the years, and an alchemy grandmaster capable of refining a pill which caused such a startling phenomenon would, needless to say, be extremely favored by Red Moon Tribal Lord. In other words, it was as if the grandmaster in the inn had obtained Red Moon Tribal Lord's protection. Even if Meteon was bold in Red Moon territory, he did not dare oppose Red Moon Tribal Lord, as that would be equal to opposing all the masters in Red Moon territory. Instantly, he had been reduced to a spectator. Meteon felt as if he had just been made to swallow a fly. Watching the numerous monster race masters of Shimmering Moon City surrounding the inn, Xianxia chuckled. He wasn't afraid of going to the palace. Even if the Red Moon Tribal Lord was an Origin King Realm Master, as long as he found a chance with his abilities in the Tao of Space, he could leave whenever he pleased, not to mention he was also an alchemy grandmaster. His current alchemy skills were even higher than Xianxia's, and he could refine Origin King grade spirit pills. If his skill was to be exposed, Red Moon Tribal Lord would likely treat him as a guest of honor. After all, Origin King grade alchemists were incredibly rare even when the entire star field was taken into account. As for Monster Emperor Star, such an alchemy grandmaster had never before appeared. Young man, this old master can only help you until here. As for what happens once you're inside the palace, that will be up to your own means. However, this old master will warn you in advance. If you want to survive, it would be best to not act too impudently once there. Ba he glanced at Xianxia and whispered. Xianxia didn't comment but instead asked with interest. Senior Ba he, not hesitating to reveal his identity at this time, was not just to help our senior sister and junior brother pair. So what is your real purpose? If it is convenient, could you tell me? Naturally, it was not just to help you. I just wanted to take this opportunity to return to the palace and ask Lady Tribal Lord for forgiveness. A desolate look flashed across Ba He's face. Xianxia raised his brow as he suddenly remembered the stories the monster race onlookers had been talking about, saying that Ba He was supposed to have been killed by the Lady Tribal Lord herself 200 years ago. Now, however, it seemed he was alive and well. Obviously, something had happened between Ba He and Red Moon Tribal Lord. At least, the rumors were wrong and Ba He had not been killed by Red Moon Tribal Lord. Perhaps Qi Yu had let him go at that time. However, Xianxia wasn't interested in digging up other people's histories and simply nodded. If that's the case, then this is just us temporarily cooperating, each obtaining what we need. Ah! Besides returning to the palace, this old master wants to ask for your help with one more thing. Ba He suddenly said with some embarrassment. What? I want to request aid from your senior sister to create a pill. Ba He said bluntly, quickly adding, You may rest assured. I have collected all the necessary materials and only need them to be refined into the appropriate pill, after which I will offer a generous remuneration. Let's talk about this when the time comes. Depending on how senior sister's mood is, perhaps she will be willing to help you? Xianxia grinned. This bastard boy. He's trying to break bridges after crossing the river. Ba He couldn't help rolling his eyes. The phenomenon grew ever stronger as time passed, and it was not long before a giant vortex seemed to cover the entire sky, gathering a terrifying amount of world energy towards itself in the process. Such a vision was no less intense than the world energy baptism a cultivator would undergo when breaking through to the origin realm. Possibly even more intense than that. No matter who it was, none of them could believe that a trivial pill refinement could cause such a startling sight. Everyone only became more curious, wondering what kind of pill the Grandmaster inside was refining. However, the rich medicinal fragrance allowed them to understand that this unrefined pill was at least origin-grade. Origin-grade alchemists on Monster Emperor Star numbered only about a dozen or so, with the most skilled having reached the origin-grade high rank. Even on Monster Emperor Star, despite this Grandmaster being only human, no monster race cultivator dared not show him respect. Humans truly had low status on this cultivation star, but the truly talented were able to obtain extremely high prestige. The polarization was quite shocking. All this was due to the wise leadership of Red Moon Tribal Lord though. If she had not dedicatedly recruited talents from the human race, Red Moon territory would not be as powerful as it was today. Among the 10 territories on Monster Emperor Star, Red Moon territory was definitely ranked amongst the top 3. One had to understand, 1,000 years ago, Red Moon territory was the weakest territory on Monster Emperor Star. Red Moon Tribal Lord had been able to overturn this status in only 1,000 years, and it was believed that, in time, Red Moon territory would become the most powerful territory on all of Monster Emperor Star. Unlike the monster race cultivators who were just watching the show, Xianxia was also an alchemist, and from the medicinal fragrance in the air as well as the phenomenon up in the sky was able to judge little senior sister's progress in her pill refinement. He was currently paying close attention to the changes in the vortex as well as the intensity of the medicinal fragrance as he secretly felt anxious for Xianxia. This was the first time that Xianxia had refined a pill which formed pill clouds. If she was successful, her alchemy skills would grow by leaps and bounds, and with her special constitution, this time's alchemy would no doubt provide her with some special insights that would allow her to make great strides in her comprehension of the martial Tao and heavenly way. The insights and experience she would gain this time were of great significance to little senior sister. Xianxia attached more importance to this than anything else, so he had spread his divine sense out to cover the entire inn and prevent anyone from engaging in mischief. Fortunately, with masters like Ba He and Ma Gu Na presiding over the situation, and with so many monster race origin realm cultivators standing guard, no one dared stir up trouble. The medicinal fragrance is growing even richer. It seems the refinement is about to finish. Just what kind of pill is being refined? How could just sniffing this medicinal fragrance loosen my bottleneck slightly? The surrounding cultivators were still discussing amongst themselves, but no one was able to guess just what kind of pill was being refined. At this moment, the swirling vortex high up in the sky suddenly changed again, as if an inexplicable attraction came from the inn, madly pulling in the condensed world energy. The huge vortex spun rapidly as it stretched downwards into the shape of a funnel. Just half a cup of tea's worth of time later, The whirlpool disappeared and the world energy which had gathered disappeared without a trace. Even the medicinal fragrance that had lingered in the air rapidly faded away. Inside the inn, everything was silent. Was it a success? Or was it a failure? Countless cultivators craned their necks and stared around, wanting to know what the final result was of the alchemy the Grandmaster inside the inn had just completed. They didn't know if this Grandmaster was old or young, male or female, but inexplicably, everyone in the crowd was looking forward to the alchemy being successful and couldn't help feeling somewhat nervous. Not only were the ordinary cultivators feeling so, Ma Guna, Bahi, and Mitian were too. Even if they behaved calmly, the light in their eyes gave away their true thoughts. Only Yang Kai, after a moment of silently probing, smiled lightly. The refinement was successful. With little senior sister's talent in alchemy, under the condition that she was not disturbed, it was only natural she would succeed. However, now she would need some time to sort through all the insights and perceptions she had gained. Yang Kai did not clarify the situation to the crowd and instead just focused on standing guard while waiting. 1 day passed. 2 days passed. Many cultivators who had come to simply watch the excitement couldn't bear the boredom that ensued while waiting for the results. So they quietly dispersed, leaving behind only the masters who were somehow, somewhat related to this matter. He turned his gaze to Yang Kai from time to time, as if hoping to glean some clues from his manner, but to his disappointment, Yang Kai's expression remained unreadable. Unable to infer anything, he could only wait patiently. In a flash, 5 days went by. There was still no movement inside the inn. No matter who it was, they would become impatient after waiting for so long. Enough! Mitian shouted suddenly. It seems the alchemist inside the inn failed and no longer dares to come out to meet us. Senior Ma Guna, order your men to capture this person immediately. Capture? Capture who? Yang Kai narrowed his eyes at him and sternly declared, Who dares? Mitian sneered and said, Human, where do you think you are? Do you still think you can decide what happens here? Senior Ma Guna, this person is so presumptuous, not even putting you in his eyes at all. If you don't take action, this young lord will take this opportunity to settle his previous grievances with him. Ma Guna frowned, not knowing what he should do in this situation, unconsciously glancing towards Bahi for advice. Seeing this, Bahi just faintly said, Even if this Grandmaster failed this refinement, being able to create such a grand disturbance by simply performing alchemy clearly demonstrates incredible skill. Lady Tribal Lord appreciates such talents the most. Hearing this, Ma Guna suddenly came back to his senses and nodded firmly. What Sir Bahi said is right. This city lord has never met anyone who can cause such a phenomenon by performing alchemy. This talent must be brought to Lady Tribal Lord unharmed. Just as everyone was conversing, however, the light sound of footsteps suddenly came from the inn. Everyone's expression changed as they quickly cast their gazes towards the source of this sound. A smile came to Yang Kai's face as he walked over quickly. A moment later, a beautiful form with a graceful figure stepped out of the inn. This woman had a slender waist and flawless jade-white skin that was both delicate and supple. Mitian originally had a lot of hostility towards the so-called Grandmaster in the inn, even wishing he could kill him quickly and be done with it. But when he saw this figure, he was startled and his eyes instantly began scrutinizing her. As the young Lord of Thousand Eyes Tribal Lord, he was born with a lofty status, and because of his special cultivation art, Mitian had no shortage of women and beauties around him from both the monster and human race. However, when he saw this figure, his eyes couldn't help lighting up. Just her figure was this enchanting, so Mitian really wanted to know what her face would look like. Moving his gaze up, Mitian couldn't help but frown. This woman actually covered her face with a black veil, making him unable to see her true countenance. However, her clear and flawless eyes, like the purest gems in the world, instantly drew his attention. This woman's white forehead was also dotted with a small sapphire which further emphasized her beauty. Pure. This was Mitian's first impression of Xianxia. Her purity was like that of a clear mountain stream, igniting a fire in Mitian's heart and making him strongly desire to tarnish her, dyeing her in his colors. Examining it again, Tian suddenly discovered that the black veil covering her face no longer looked objectionable, but instead added a layer of cleanness to her already pure air, taking it to an even higher level. Without this veil to obscure her face, this pure beauty would actually have less appeal. It was precisely because they could not see her true appearance that she could make those who gazed upon her even more interested. Tian's interest was aroused and a faint smile appeared at the corner of his lips while a wicked light flashed across his eyes. "I'm sorry, junior brother." Xianxia looked a little nervous and apologized softly. When she was performing alchemy, she had noticed some movement outside the inn, but with her attention completely focused on her refinement, she did not pay any attention to this commotion. It wasn't until she had finished her alchemy that she realized what had happened. Refining this pill had created such a massive disturbance, so it was only natural for so many people to have gathered around out of curiosity. Now, seeing so many people outside, and Xianxia standing before all of them, she immediately understood how much pressure he had endured for her during her alchemy. "Don't say such things. It's thanks to senior sister that we will soon be able to enter the palace." Xianxia grinned, taking her little hand and leading her over to Bahi. The corner of Tian's eyes twitched as the gaze he directed at Xianxia became more and more hostile. It was as if something he decided was his had been touched by someone else. A woman! Ma Guna was dumbfounded. When Xianxia appeared, the monster race masters standing guard were stunned. None of them had expected that the alchemy grandmaster in the inn was actually a woman, and such a beautiful, pure, and young woman at that. In their imagination, anyone who can become a respected alchemy grandmaster would be an old man with gray hair. How could they not be stunned when reality turned out so different from their imagination? Ma Guna could hardly believe his eyes and unconsciously turned to Bahi for confirmation. "There's no need for doubt, she is the grandmaster, and she came here together with this human boy," Bahi said lightly. Hearing this, Ma Guna became convinced and quickly took 2 steps forward, cupped his fists, and said, "Shimmering Moon City's city lord, Ma Guna, greets Grandmaster. Grandmaster has labored diligently." On his face, he wore the friendliest smile he could manage. Xianxia was slightly flurried at first but soon calmed down and replied with an elegant bow. "Sir City Lord is too polite. The title of Grandmaster is something this young woman is unworthy of." The sound of her voice was clear and sweet, dazzling countless monster race cultivators. So pure, with such a pleasant voice, and highly proficient in alchemy, such a human, regardless of the differences in status between the 2 races, such a woman was worthy of pursuing with reckless abandon. Unfortunately, looking at Xianxia holding Xianxia's little hand, every monster race male couldn't help spraying jealous light from their eyes. Like sharp arrows they hoped could riddle Xianxia full of holes to soothe the hatred in their hearts. Xianxia's humility made Ma Guna laugh and hurriedly say, "Right, young lady. Let me introduce to you the first master of my monster race below the Origin King realm. And he was also once the first general under Red Moon Tribal, Sir Bahi." "Greetings, Senior Bahi." Xianxia bowed once more. Bahi chuckled and said, "Young lady need not be so deferent. It was this old master's honor to witness such a grand event." He still needed to ask Xianxia for help, so he didn't dare assume too arrogant a tone. "This is the young master of Thousand Eyes Tribal Lord, young Lord Tian." Ma Guna next pointed to Tian and offered introductions. Tian took a step forward and put on a harmless smile as he politely said, "Tian being able to bear witness to this young lady's presence is truly his good fortune." Xianxia gently nodded, not giving more of a reply. She didn't know why, but she felt that although this Tian acted perfectly in front of her, she couldn't help feeling somewhat vigilant of him. Xianxia simply sneered to the side. "Young lady, the pill you refined a few days ago, was the refinement?" Ma Guna looked at Xianxia with a look of expectation, wondering if she had been successful or not. Bahi also focused his attention on her. Xianxia frowned and turned to Xianxia for guidance. She didn't want to show the results of her labor to everyone here. "Show them. Whether we can enter the palace or not depends on that pill," Xianxia whispered in her ear. his affectionate behavior causing little senior sister's tender body to tremble slightly as a pink hue dyed her delicate earlobes. However, since Yang Kai had said so, she did not try to conceal it anymore, lifting her little hand and summoning a jade bottle into her palm. Yang Kai picked up the jade bottle, didn't even look at it, and threw it to Bahi directly. "The pill is inside. Please have a look for yourself, senior." Bahi's expression turned serious as he carefully held the jade bottle, slowly opened it, and poured out the pill inside. When the pill appeared, Bahi couldn't help but exclaim, "Pill clouds!" These two small words shook everyone who heard them to their core. Ma Guna's eyes almost popped out of their sockets as he stared straight at the pill. On the surface of this pill, there was a thick layer of clouds which seemed to be rich in aura. These were indeed pill clouds. There was no need to doubt it. Although none of the monster race masters present had ever seen a pill that formed pill clouds before, the moment they laid eyes on this pill, they immediately recognized that it possessed the legendary pill clouds. The surrounding world energy was slowly and steadily gathering towards this pill as well, providing further proof. If given enough time, the medicinal efficacies contained in this pill would reach an extremely terrifying height. Of course, that would take an extraordinary number of years to achieve. Even so, such a pill's value was already inestimable. "Sir Bahi, is this an origin-grade pill?" Ma Guna leaned forward and asked with a trembling voice. It is indeed an origin-grade pill." Bahi nodded, the shock on his face not having diminished at all. The higher the grade of the pill, the harder it was for it to form things like pill veins and pill clouds. If an excellent alchemist was lucky enough, they might be able to rarely refine low-grade pills, such as earth-grade, that formed pill veins or pill clouds. However, Bahi had never heard of any alchemist who could refine an origin-grade pill that formed pill veins, let alone pill clouds which were superior to pill veins. This was a feat that not even the best human alchemist on Monster Emperor Star could achieve, and that Grandmaster was an origin-grade high-rank alchemist. How high must this woman's attainments in alchemy be? Was this just a lucky coincidence, or was it a reflection of her true skill that she was able to refine an origin-grade pill that formed pill clouds? Bahi was shocked to the extreme. It was only now that he finally understood that the previous phenomenon which had appeared was not due to some extremely high-grade pill being refined, but rather because a pill that formed pill clouds had been refined. This was far more valuable than a mere high-grade pill. It could be said that because she was capable of refining such a pill, this human woman had the capital to look down upon all of Monster Emperor Star. She was more than deserved the title of Grandmaster. Bahi looked in awe towards Xianxia for a while before solemnly saying to Ma Guna, "Moreover, this is an origin-condensing pill." Ma Guna drew a sharp breath. The origin-condensing pill was only an origin-grade low-rank pill, but the difficulty of refining it exceeded even some origin-grade mid-rank pills because this pill could help a cultivator break through their bottleneck to reach the origin-returning realm. With such an origin-condensing pill, it could be said that any third-order Saint King could break through to the origin-returning realm without any hindrance or worrying about failure. So this Grandmaster is at least an origin-grade mid-rank alchemist? Ma Guna asked breathlessly. "I cannot judge." Bahi didn't dare to make any assumptions as he carefully put the pill back into the jade bottle and then into his space ring. "No matter what, this Grandmaster must be escorted to the palace safely. You should understand what to do. Sir Bahi may rest assured. I understand what must be done." Ma Guna nodded solemnly. Lady Tribal Lord had been actively recruiting special talents from the human race for so many years, and this woman was her absolute favorite type. So how could Ma Guna not pay special attention to her? After confirming the grade and value of this pill, Ma Guna's attitude towards Xianxia became even more respectful, and he strongly invited Xianxia to rest in the city lord's mansion. Xianxia felt quite aggrieved at this moment. The first pill she had ever refined that formed pill clouds had been silently taken away by this monster race master. Yang Kai had to comfort her for a while before her mood finally improved. Yang Kai naturally understood the intentions behind Ma Guna inviting them to the city lord's mansion, so he stepped up and agreed in Xianxia's place. Ma Guna realized from this that Yang Kai was the one who spoke for Xianxia, so out of respect for her, his attitude towards Yang Kai also changed dramatically, completely glossing over all the trouble he had caused previously in Shimmering Moon City and enthusiastically inviting the senior sister and junior brother pair to his residence so he could properly entertain them. Mi Tian also naturally entered the city lord's mansion together with them. As the young lord of Thousand Eyes tribal lord, he should have been the focus of everyone's attention no matter where he went, but for this trip to Shimmering Moon City, his limelight was completely stolen by Xianxia. Regarding this though, Mi Tian was neither jealous nor angry. After all, this beautiful woman would sooner or later be his, so he wouldn't care about the small things now. He took it for granted. Yang Kai and Xianxia spent the next 2 days at the city lord's mansion. Over the past 2 days, Yang Kai and Xianxia stayed in their courtyard and discussed the true alchemy enlightenment scripture together. After refining an origin condensing pill that formed pill clouds, Xianxia's insights on the alchemic way had truly improved by leaps and bounds, even allowing Yang Kai to benefit greatly from their discussion. 2 days later, Ma Gu-na personally came to inform Yang Kai and Xianxia that everything had been prepared, and they were only waiting for the two of them before setting off to the palace of Lady Tribal Lord. Yang Kai and Xianxia didn't delay and happily followed Ma Gu-na out of the city lord's mansion. Outside, more than 30 origin returning realm masters were waiting information, all of them wearing solemn expressions, as if they would soon be headed to some great battle. In truth, they were only responsible for escorting Xianxia safely to the palace. For a talent like Xianxia, Ma Gu-na had spared no effort and directly assigned most of the masters in Shimmering Moon City to her escort. Together with masters like Ba He and Mi Tian, it was highly unlikely anyone would be blind enough to provoke this group. Ma Gu-na had prepared a gorgeous carriage for Xianxia as well, and although the two monster beasts pulling it weren't on par with Mi Tian's 2 thunder flame flying lizards, they were still powerful 8th order monster beasts. Facing Ma Gu-na's fervent requests, Xianxia reluctantly boarded this carriage. A group of a dozen wolf-riding guards cleared the way forward, followed by more than a dozen origin returning realm masters while the rest were arranged to the sides of the carriage. More guards were responsible for patrolling around and keeping miscellaneous people away as this grand procession departed from Shimmering Moon City. Although with the cultivation level of these people it would have been faster to use star shuttles, in order to emphasize Xianxia's importance, Ma Gu-na had still put on such a big show. Borrowing her limelight, Yang Kai sat on the carriage together with Xianxia. It wasn't that he wanted to show off, but little senior sister seemed quite uncomfortable by herself as she was not used to receiving such opulent treatment. In the end, Yang Kai could only accompany her to keep her calm. Mi Tian rode a wolf-shaped monster beast behind the carriage, with his eyes almost spitting fire. Such an outstanding woman could only be matched with him, and while this human called Yang Kai had good combat strength, he was still just a lowly human. The intimacy of the two on the carriage almost blinded Mi Tian's eyes. Just you wait. Sooner or later this young lord will settle accounts with you for killing his 2 monster beasts. Mi Tian spat in his heart. The whole journey was calm and uneventful. This was Red Moon territory, and Shimmering Moon City's city lord had personally brought a large number of origin returning realm masters to escort a human alchemy grandmaster to the palace. After this news spread out, no monster race cultivator dared come make trouble. The speed of the carriage was extremely fast, almost comparable to flying. After just 5 days of travel, a large group of majestic buildings appeared in the distance. There were many palaces and pavilions, with the main palace of the Red Moon tribal lord being constructed atop a grand mountain. From the bottom of the mountain all the way up, one could see smaller, neatly arranged palaces and facilities linked by wide passageways. This was Half Moon Mountain, the residence of Red Moon tribal lord. In the eyes of all monster race cultivators who lived in Red Moon territory, this was a holy land where their glorious leader, Lady Qiyu, lived year-round. Yang Kai stood on the carriage as he stared ahead profoundly. "Is Sister Qing Luo over there?" Xianxia asked softly. "She should be." Yang Kai gently nodded. "I wonder how she is now. She must be even more beautiful than before," Xianxia murmured. She had naturally met Shan Qing Luo many times before, and although that was back in the central capital many years ago, this seductive woman had still left a deep impression on her. Xianxia had never met such an enchanting woman before, and even she couldn't help finding herself attracted by her charms. It was as if Shan Qingluo was born to mesmerize, and Xia Ningchang doubted if there was any man in this world who would not be bewitched by her. "You'll know soon enough." Yang Kai patted the back of Xia Ningchang's hand as he embraced her waist and lightly flew down from the carriage. Lady Qi Yu's palace is truly extraordinary. This young lord has long wished to lay eyes upon it, and it certainly does not disappoint. Mi Tian avoided looking at the intimacy between Yang Kai and Xia Ningchang, so as not to fill his heart with anger, and instead chose to focus on the palace before them. "Let's go, we'll have to walk from here. Lady Tribal Lord should have already received news of our arrival, so someone will definitely come to meet us." Ma Guna waved his hand and ordered the other monster race masters to remain here and wait before leading Yang Kai and the others forward. Red Moon Tribal Lord had indeed received the news long ago, and there was a group of people waiting at the foot of the mountain. When Ma Guna and the others arrived here, the lead monster race cultivator who was waiting gave Xianing Chong a faint glance before gently nodding. "Many thanks for your hard work. Lady Tribal Lord has commanded that for the merit of escorting this Grandmaster to the palace, Ma Guna will receive a rich reward in the future. For now, however, please rest at the palace's guest accommodations." Ma Guna smiled widely and quickly offered his thanks. The lead cultivator nodded lightly before suddenly turning his gaze to Ba He and shouting, "Seize him!" Suddenly, several monster race cultivators appeared from all directions and rushed towards Ba He. Ba He just stood there and did not put up any resistance, allowing the monster race masters to shackle him and seal his Saint Chi. "It's been so long, Dong Shi, but I see you're still as merciless as always." Ba He smiled. "You, on the other hand, have become far more shameless. This time you won't walk out of Half Moon Mountain alive again." The monster race cultivator called Dong Shi coldly snorted. "Whether I can live or not will be up to Lady Tribal Lord to decide. Dong Shi, you and I have known each other for so many years, so I'll be counting on you to put in a good word for me later." "In your dreams," Dong Shi snorted at him. "But you can rest assured, as long as Lady Tribal Lord orders your death, I will personally send you on the road." "You really are ruthless." Ba He had been detained. This result stunned Yang Kai, but seeing Ba He's confident look, Yang Kai estimated that he didn't have to worry about his life. Mi Tian was also warmly entertained while Yang Kai and Xianing Chong were escorted into Half Moon Mountain by a monster race woman, walking along a well-maintained mountain road towards the summit. It was impossible to tell what lineage of monster beast the monster race woman walking in the front descended from, but despite her petite frame, she seemed to possess incredible vigor and strength. She had a first-order origin returning realm cultivation, and her two ears were cat-like, short, and delicate. Yang Kai was not surprised by such sights and instead focused on taking in the scenery of Red Moon Territory's Holy Land. The surrounding world energy was extremely rich, indicating that a high-quality earth vein should be running beneath Half Moon Mountain. Otherwise, it would not be able to satisfy the large number of monster race cultivators living here. "Miss, are we going to see Lady Chiyu now?" Yang Kai asked after some time. "Lady Tribal Lord has many important matters to attend to, so she won't be receiving you immediately. That responsibility has been given to someone else." The monster race woman in front didn't look back as she replied lightly. "Understood." Yang Kai nodded, not asking any more questions. Although Xianing Chang's performance in Shimmering Moon City was shocking, Chi Yu was one of the 10 great tribal lords and an origin king realm master, so not welcoming Xianing Chang personally was only to be expected. However, Chi Yu would not show any disrespect to Xianing Chang either, so she should have arranged for someone of high status and competence to receive Xianing Chang. Yang Kai only wanted to look for that enchantress, Shan Qingluo, so whether he could meet Chi Yu or not did not matter to him. In fact, not seeing Chi Yu might even be better. After all, facing an origin king still meant a great deal of pressure for Yang Kai. Hearing the monster race woman escorting them say that someone else would be greeting them allowed Yang Kai to relax. As they followed this woman, Yang Kai was considering how he should find and contact Shan Qingluo. In this kind of place, he did not dare to use his divine sense too presumptuously, as doing so would most likely cause trouble. After walking for about half an hour, the monster race woman brought Yang Kai and Xianing Chang to a magnificent palace and walked straight in. Inside the palace, within a spacious and brightly lit hall, many monster race cultivators were lined up on both sides as they curiously looked towards the door. They had all received news about a human who refined a pill that formed pill clouds in shimmering Moon City, and that City Lord Maguna would soon be escorting her to the palace to enter Lady Tribal Lord service. Everyone was naturally curious about what kind of human possessed such amazing alchemy skills. Sitting at the head of the hall were two third-order origin returning realm masters. The one on the left was a burly man that had an imposing and terrifying look to him. The one on the right had beautiful features and seemed to exude an infinite charm. She was naturally gorgeous, but sitting next to this gruff man only increased her appeal. Many of the monster race cultivators waiting down below would glance towards this woman from time to time, but all would soon turn away as they were afraid of being caught in her charms and staring unconsciously. Currently, the brawny iron tower of a man on the left was fidgeting noticeably, looking slightly uncomfortable, obviously somewhat impatient with the current situation. On the contrary, the woman on the right had a slightly furrowed brow as a look of confusion filled her face. Her beautiful eyes were cast towards the outside of the hall, as if she was trying to peer through space. As time passed, the woman's expression began to change, gradually filling with delight and excitement. Her originally lazily sitting figure straightened up and her tender body could not help trembling slightly. Her beautiful eyes flashed with amazing brilliance, and she bit her luscious red lips lightly as an expectant look appeared on her pretty face accompanied by a slight smile. The many monster race masters below were instantly captivated by this scene and felt their hearts begin to pound as their mouths dried up. They had never seen this woman smile like this before, and it instantly caused all the color in the world to drain away. For a moment, none of them could resist the temptation brought out by this smile, and all of them couldn't wait to lose themselves in it. Even if that meant never being able to emerge from the darkness and see light again, they would not hesitate. A series of loud snorts echoed in the hall in the next instant as many of the monster race masters noticed something was wrong and hurriedly circulated their Saint Chi to stabilize their minds, some even causing themselves harm to quickly extricate themselves from their daze. If they were to lose themselves any further, they would really be unable to save themselves. A walking disaster. The adopted daughter of Lady Tribal Lord was an immense source of trouble. Even the most famous fox race woman from the monster race was not as enrapturing as this woman. She was just a human, so why were her charms so overwhelming? Many monster race masters could not understand no matter how they puzzle over this issue. Not even the greatest of the monster race's younger generation were worthy of her. Why haven't they come yet? Uncle here can't stand all this waiting. A thunderous shout suddenly sounded inside the hall, completely shaking free the hearts of the still somewhat dazzled monster race cultivators, all of whom raised their heads to look at the burly man seated next to the charming woman. This big man seemed to be sitting on pins and needles, rubbing his palms together as he turned his head to the coquettish woman next to him, putting on a flattering appearance, then asking with an ugly smile, "Little sister, how about you wait here and let big brother go attend to some other business?" The coquettish woman glanced over at him, pursed her lips and chuckled as she said, "You Xiong, this duty was given to us directly by adoptive mother. The one coming here is an alchemy grandmaster, so our etiquette cannot be lacking. If you escape now, once adoptive mother finds out, little sister won't put in a good word for you." Ahem? Yu Xiong smiled awkwardly, a chill running up his back as he thought about how terrifying his adoptive mother was when she was angry, his tall and sturdy body seemingly shrinking a bit as he waved his hand. "I was just making a casual suggestion. Don't take it seriously, okay?" As soon as Yu Xiong's words fell, a monster race woman walked in from outside and gave an elegant bow before lightly saying, "Masters, I've brought our honored guests." Finally, Yu Xiong snorted coldly, an unhappy look on his face. Father here must see if this alchemy grandmaster is really capable, or if she's like the previous ones who are just after fame and status. Don't blame Father here for tearing her to pieces if so, because Chi-Yu attached great importance to humans with special talents. Many humans in Red Moon territory dreamed of entering Lady Tribal Lord service and living on Half Moon Mountain. However, most of these people were obviously not capable and only knew how to boast about their skills while trying to hide their incompetence. Without exception, these people were brutally killed by Yu Xiong. So this time, Yu Xiong didn't have much hope there was really a human who was capable of refining an origin-grade pill that formed pill clouds. He figured it was just shimmering Moon City's city lord wanting to reap some profits by making up an elaborate story. Show them in. The bewitching woman next to Yu Xiong suppressed her excitement as best as possible as she ordered. Yes. The monster race woman nodded before turning to look back at the door to the hall and beckoning. A man and a woman, walking side by side, entered immediately after. The man was stalwart, and the woman was delicate and petite, the two of them gazing around the hall randomly but soon fixing on the beautiful woman. Yang Kai grinned at this sight while Xia Ningchong also pursed her lips and giggled. The tender body of the enchanting woman sitting up ahead also trembled slightly as a faint trace of mist began covering her beautiful eyes. Fortunately, she had impeccable temperament and managed to not lose control in front of this crowd. After taking a few deep breaths, she calmed down her pounding heart and lifted her delicate chin slightly, directing her mesmerizing eyes towards Yang Kai, a complicated mix of love and hate flashing across their depths unbeknownst to anyone else in the hall, as she ground her teeth slightly. Masters, these are the two guests. The monster race woman reported back. Hey, wasn't there only supposed to be a woman alchemy grandmaster? Why is he here? Yu Xiong looked at Yang Kai curiously. The monster race woman replied, these two seem to be senior sister and junior brother, so they came here together. So he's just a boy toy. Yu Xiong sneered. Father here despises this kind of person the most. He subconsciously regarded Yang Kai as a useless man who had latched onto and was leeching off Xia Ningchong. Yang Kai did not care about Yu Xiong's evaluation as all his focus was directed towards the beauty in front of him, a playful smile filling his face. As if she could not stand the aggressive and unflinching gaze of Yang Kai, the enchantress shot him a wicked look, her beautiful eyes filling with the meaning of rebuke. This scene was not missed by the massive crowd. Bold human, why are you not bowing down? From both sides of the hall, many monster race masters began angrily shouting. Red Moon Territory had sent out so many people and even had two highly respected masters receive this pair, which was more than enough face for an unproven alchemy grandmaster. But upon first meeting, these two humans actually just refused to show the slightest hint of humility. These two standing in the hall motionlessly seemed to say they did not take anyone here seriously. Without Lady Tribal Lord's recognition, all humans were just trash. Only the monster race reigned supreme here. What angered the monster race masters the most though was that since the hall, the boy toy had been staring at their young lady without blinking, as if he wanted to eat her alive. The audacity! Even if their young lady was incredibly charming, a trivial human could not be allowed to act so presumptuously and blaspheme her so. Many monster race masters were glaring at Yang Kai at this moment. Hey, you little shit! Where do you think you're staring at? Yu Xiong also found that something was wrong, got up immediately, and glared at Yang Kai viciously. You think father here won't dig out your eyes if you keep staring? Human. There are some in this world you cannot lay eyes on lightly, especially when you're just a boy toy. A monster race master ridiculed from the side. This human boy was simply too much. Although the woman next to him had her face covered, it was obvious just from her figure and the tone of her skin that she was a rare beauty. Yet this boy toy wasn't satisfied with her and actually dared to covet their young lady. It was simply unacceptable. This human race woman must also be blind, choosing such a loose man to accompany her. Such an excellent alchemy grandmaster could only be paired with the young elites of the monster race. Human, Sir Yu Xiong's temper is short. If you want to survive, you should admit your mistakes and apologize by kowtowing, and you might just get to keep your life. A monster race master yelled, as if trying to give instructions to Yang Kai. The charm of their young lady was obvious to all, so no one thought it was entirely this human boy's mistake. Acknowledge my mistakes and apologize by kowtowing? Yang Kai touched his chin, as if he didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth as he continued staring at the enchanting woman with scorching eyes, a playful smile appearing on his face as he asked, Beautiful, do you want me to do so? The audience was shocked by these words. Everyone looked at Yang Kai in disbelief. This human actually dared call their young lady beautiful. This was not just rudeness, but blatant sexual harassment. Although the young lady was originally human, she had been accepted as the adopted daughter of Lady Tribal Lord for special reasons and had been instructed in cultivation personally by Chi Yu over the years. The young lady's talent was world famous, and even if the elite of the monster race stood before her, they had to act politely and respectfully. Yet now, a human actually tried to flirt with her in front of so many onlookers? Did he have a death wish? Bold! A monster race master roared angrily. To harass the young lady was an insult to the monster race and to Red Moon Tribal Lord. No monster race cultivator could tolerate Yang Kai's presumptuousness, and immediately everyone in the hall became indignant and began releasing murderous intent. Yu Xiong also froze for a moment, but after quickly recovering from his shock, he actually burst into laughter, pointed at Yang Kai, and said to the bewitching woman next to him, "Little sister, this boy toy actually address you so loosely, only calling you by beautiful. Am I not?" The enchantress glanced over at Yu Xiong lightly, her enrapturing eyes narrowing slightly. Yu Xiong's laughter immediately got stuck in his throat as he shrank his neck and quickly denied. "Brother naturally didn't mean that. It's just, I've never heard anyone call you that way, so I was surprised for a moment. This boy toy is too shameless. Big brother will teach him a lesson for you." Saying so, he looked viciously towards Yang Kai. In Red Moon territory, Yu Xiong's position was under one person while above 10,000. He was the adopted son of the Red Moon Tribal Lord, and his strength and status were incomparable to those of ordinary monster race masters. His demeanor was also straightforward, courageous, and bold, so there were just two people who could make him back down. One was naturally Red Moon Tribal Lord, while the other was this beautiful woman sitting to his right. If what Yu Xiong felt towards Red Moon Tribal Lord was a sense of awe, then what he felt for this little sister of his was deep admiration. In terms of aptitude and cultivation speed, his little sister's talent vastly exceeded his own. His adoptive mother had once said to him that his little sister was the most promising talent in Red Moon territory besides Ba He, and would definitely break through to the Origin King realm. He was unable to match this. No need. The beauty rejected Yu Xiong's proposal. "You're letting him off? Isn't that too lenient? He has to pay for his frivolousness." Yu Xiong shook his head, somewhat unhappy. The enchanting woman just smiled lightly, however, got up from her chair, and walked forward while saying with a laugh, "Let him off? Naturally, there's no way that's possible. Such a shameless man who clearly goes around loosely plucking flowers everywhere cannot go unpunished. I'll personally put him in his place." All right then." Yu Xiong nodded, glancing towards Yang Kai while clearly taking pleasure in his misfortune. Grinning as he said, "Boy toy, you're finished now. If father here was the one to make a move, you'd at least have a swift end, but with little sister taking action, heh. As soon as the monster race masters lined up on both sides of the hall heard that their young lady was going to handle this boy toy herself, all of them grinned as they began looking forward to the coming show. On the other hand, this boy toy being able to receive their young lady's lesson personally, it was also a kind of blessing, one many of the monster race masters were envious of. A moment later, the enchantress arrived in front of Yang Kai and lifted her smooth, jade-like chin up slightly, giving her a noble and inviolable air while slightly revealing her slender neckline, a dazzling sight to behold. Yang Kai showed no fear as he continued smiling at her. The woman grit her teeth as she slowly stretched out her hand, extending her jade finger as she poked Yang Kai's chest. Yu Xiong observed mockingly, expecting his little sister to use some cruel and inhuman ways to torture this shameless boy. Numerous monster race masters also craned their necks as they watched expectantly. Poking her jade finger onto Yang Kai's chest, the coquettish woman said lightly, "You decide, should I dig out your heart, pull out your liver, or split open your chest and take a look whether your insides are black or white? Do you hate me so much?" Yang Kai touched his nose. "Absolutely." The woman lifted her chin slightly more. "I hate you to the bone. I wish I could tear your corpse into 10,000 pieces then burn your remains to ashes." "Ha ha." Yang Kai smiled dryly. While the enchantress was talking, her jade finger continued tracing over Yang Kai's chest as she ground her teeth, as if she truly had a deep hatred for Yang Kai. Yu Xiong's face flushed with excitement, secretly paying attention to Yang Kai's reaction. This little sister of his never seemed to use particularly harsh methods, but with her ability, it should be a simple task for her to make this boy toy suffer. He was just waiting for this boy toy's 5 viscera and 6 organs to be melted into a pool of pus after being poked by his little sister. However, why did it seem like his little sister's tone carried so much sadness with it? Yu Xiong scratched his head, somewhat puzzled. Don't make trouble. Yang Kai showed a helpless look before grabbing the enchantress' little hand. The other party tried to shake him off but failed to escape his grip. The assembled monster race masters were immediately filled with righteous indignation as their eyes nearly spat fire. Impudence! This boy toy not only dared to sexually harass their young lady, now he had even gone so far as to frivolously touch her hand. How could this be tolerated? All of them were about to rush out to teach Yang Kai an unforgettable lesson. But then they saw a shy look on their young lady's face, as well as a hint of blush on her delicate cheeks and slender neck. Even her raised chin drooped down, making her arrogant air instantly turn docile. What exactly just happened? Why was their young lady reacting like this? The gathered monster race cultivators were all dumbfounded. You bastard! The enchanting woman cursed under her breath as an aggrieved look filled her beautiful eyes. Didn't I tell you that I'm on Monster Emperor's star? Why didn't you come see me until now? I couldn't help it. I had no way to carry out a long-distance voyage through the star field, so I was unable to reach you, Yang Kai explained helplessly. Even this time, arriving here was a lucky stroke, but in the end, didn't I still come? Qing Luo, don't be angry. It will just create a scene here for everyone to see. They've been watching this scene the whole time already. Qing Luo glared at Yang Kai. Didn't you want things to turn out like this? Are you satisfied now? Ha. Yang Kai grinned. Actually, I didn't expect that it would be you meeting me and little senior sister here. So if anyone was caught off guard, it should be me. If that's really the case, then I won't hold it against you. Qing Luo snorted softly. The two of them affectionately and sweetly interacting with one another caused many of the monster race masters in the hall to stare dumbly. By now, all of them had obviously figured out that their young lady and this boy toy knew each other from a long time ago, and their relationship was also very close. Otherwise, they would not have put on such a flirtatious scene. This only made it harder for everyone to accept, though. Yu Xiong also gawked as his eyes nearly bulged out of their sockets. He had never seen his little sister act so tenderly, and when she spoke with this boy toy, she flashed a look of complete satisfaction and happiness. Yu Xiong had seen his little sister pining in loneliness for many years, but now, her contentment stood in sharp contrast to her solitary figure. Your position here seems to be very high, Yang Kai commented lightly. To be honest, seeing Qing Luo sitting at the head of this hall had really surprised him. Even though he had known that Qing Luo was accepted as an adopted daughter by Red Moon Tribal Lord, she was still from a different race, so Yang Kai had originally thought that Qing Luo would be having a difficult time here. After seeing her, though, he realized he was completely wrong. Adoptive mother regards me very highly, so no one from the monster race dares to disrespect me. Qing Luo replied softly. Who is he then? He seems to hold the same status as you. Yang Kai raised his head to look at Yu Xiong. He's the same as me, taken in by adoptive mothers. In name, he is my big brother, but he is an orthodox monster race, Qing Luo explained softly, after which she saw the slight trace of hostility in Yang Kai's eyes disappear. This discovery made her heart leap for joy. What it meant for a man to be jealous of his woman. Qing Luo knew better than anyone else. Brother-in-law, nice to meet you. Yang Kai suddenly raised his head and smiled at Yu Xiong, calling out loudly. Yu Xiong nearly fell backwards on the spot. If Yu Xiong had a guess about their relationship after seeing his little sister and this boy toy act so intimately just now, the title Yang Kai had just addressed him by confirmed it. His little sister and this boy toy actually had that kind of relationship. How was that possible, though? Yu Xiong stared at Qing Luo in disbelief, but he could clearly see that she had no intention of denying it, instead just smiling shyly. Yu Xiong suddenly heard from cracking sounds and couldn't help glancing around at the other monster race males in the hall, quickly discovering many of them wearing looks of grief and anguish, as if they just had a knife driven through their hearts. Many were also glaring hatefully at Yang Kai, as if they wished to turn their gazes into sharp arrows that could pierce and kill this boy toy immediately. Yu Xiong found himself somewhat unable to keep up with the situation and also at a loss for what to say Yang Kai, but when his eyes landed on Xianing Chong, who had been standing quietly beside Yang Kai the whole time, he couldn't help asking, "Then what is your relationship with this young lady?" "Little senior sister is my woman." Yang Kai smiled as he stretched out a hand to wrap around Xianing Chang's waist while using his other to embrace Shan Qing Luo. Shan Qing Luo struggled slightly, but soon complied with Yang Kai's meaning, nestling her blushing face into his arms. Yu Xiong's jaw dropped as he stared at the confidently smiling boy in front of him. A feeling of admiration spontaneously welled up inside of him as he gave a big thumbs up. This was a real winner in life. The true role model for all boy toys. Yang Kai and Xia Ningchang smoothly entered the palace. After such an overt display back in the main hall, everyone knew about the close relationship between Yang Kai and Shan Qing Luo, causing a great deal of jealousy amongst the monster race masters who were cursing Yang Kai for his luck in love. Inside a luxurious guest room, Shan Qing Luo brought by Luo to visit Yang Kai and Xia Ningchang. Just now, there had been too many people around, so Shan Qing Luo had not said very much. But now that she had an opportunity, she would naturally speak with him at length. Although Yang Kai already learned a lot from Bai Luo inside the Emperor Garden, there were plenty of details he wasn't clear about. After talking with Shan Qing Luo, however, Yang Kai understood that after this enchantress arrived on Monster Emperor Star, she had experienced a lot of hardship. From the start, she was extremely beautiful and naturally charming, and when she came to Monster Emperor Star, her strength was not high, so she became the target of many unscrupulous men. If not for her bumping into Red Moon Tribal Lord coincidentally and being accepted as the latter's adopted daughter, Shan Qing Luo did not even want to think about what her fate would have been. Therefore, she was very grateful to Red Moon Tribal Lord. Moreover, since accepting her as an adopted daughter, Qi Yu had treated her very well, a fact which was obvious just by looking at Shan Qing Luo's status in Red Moon territory. For those who did not already know the truth, they would most likely assume she was a pureblood monster race. A human being able to hold such a position in Red Moon territory was a testament to Red Moon Tribal Lord's vision. After hearing what Shan Qing Luo said, Yang Kai also felt some admiration towards this Red Moon Tribal Lord he had never met before. In short, adoptive mother is very good to me. Also, because I refined the source of the heavenly moon demon spider, I can no longer be considered purely human, but I'm not a member of the monster race either, Shan Qing Luo said with a light smile. What are you then? Yang Kai asked in surprise. I'm what is known as a half-monster. There is a special group on Monster Emperor Star that are considered half-monsters, but their status is only slightly higher than humans. Half-monsters. Yang Kai was stunned. These half-monsters were born from the union of the monster and human race and are not recognized by humans or accepted by the monster race, so their status is quite awkward, Shan Qing Luo casually explained. A union between human and monster race? Is such a thing allowed on Monster Emperor Star? Of course it's not allowed. Monster Emperor Star is different from other cultivation stars in that the monster race is supreme, so how could they tolerate their blood being contaminated by humans? However, sometimes love between two people does not follow the common sense of the world around them or care about its disdain. That's why a special group like half-monsters exists, Shan Qing Luo said lightly. To be honest, I quite admire those people. For example, Senior Bahi who came with you. He experienced such matters. Do you know about Bahi? Yang Kai's eyes lit up. I didn't know about it originally, but I heard some things from Yu Xiong recently. Do tell, I'm also quite curious about the old man, Yang Kai asked quickly. He had heard a lot of rumors about Bahi back in Shimmering Moon City, and the strength he had displayed was indeed extraordinary. So Yang Kai had some interest in him. Shan Qing Luo didn't know much, but the reason why Ba He had remained hidden in Shimmering Moon City for 200 years, even changing his appearance and concealing his cultivation, was truly related to a human woman. Ba He had been the strongest general under Red Moon Tribal Lord for several hundred years, and his aptitude was extremely high. He had long reached the peak of the Third-Order Origin Returning Realm, and with his attainments ensure, no other Origin Returning Realm Master was his match. For a time, he was known as the first master under the Origin King Realm on Monster Emperor Star. He was also the most likely candidate on all of Monster Emperor Star to break through to the Origin King Realm. Once he reached that realm, it would mean that he could stand on equal footing with Chi Yu and become a powerful existence at the level of the other tribal lords. But Ba He suddenly fell deeply in love with a human woman at first sight. The monster race rejected the union between ordinary humans and monsters, so how could a future star like Ba He be allowed to engage in such behavior? The resistance he encountered was naturally far greater than normal, especially from Red Moon Tribal Lord, a fact that made Ba He even more miserable. If things really continued to develop like this with Ba He's arrogant temperament back then, it was highly likely he would turn his back on the whole monster race. At that point, he would definitely become the target of public scorn across all of Monster Emperor Star. Red Moon Tribal Lord also had a terrible headache about this problem. Naturally, she did not want to see her most powerful general be forced into such a desperate situation. Out of respect for his talent, she was even prepared to accept the fact Ba He wanted to be together with that human woman. After all, although the two races could not openly fraternize with one another, it was perfectly normal for some monster race masters to keep a few human beauties. Which monster race master's mansion didn't have some beautiful human toys? Everyone was well aware of this reality but also made sure not to mention it in public. As long as Ba He could really break through to the Origin King realm, him being together with a human woman wasn't a matter of consequence. However, before Chi Yu could clearly explain her position to Ba He, a tragedy occurred. The human race woman Ba He was in love with actually experienced a deviation in her cultivation when attempting to break through a minor realm and died. Ba He, who learned the news, was both deeply saddened and infuriated. He could not help thinking that the reason why his beloved woman inexplicably experienced deviation in her cultivation was because Red Moon Tribal Lord had secretly meddled with her somehow. In a rage, Ba He ran amok on Half Moon Mountain before storming into Chi Yu's private chambers to confront her. No one knew what happened that day, but when Lady Chi Yu came out, she announced that for his crimes of disrespect and disobedience, Ba He had been executed by her. For the next 200 years, there were no news of Ba He. Only recently had he taken the initiative to show himself in Shimmering Moon City. So, Red Moon Tribal Lord didn't kill Ba He but let him go. Yang Kai postulated. Most likely. Shanqing Luo nodded lightly. Adoptive mother is a master at the Second Order Origin King Realm. If she really wanted to kill Ba He would definitely be dead. There is no way he could have escaped with his life. Yang Kai nodded gently. Yang Kai. Shanqing Luo suddenly called out softly. Do you think that human woman's cultivation deviation and death were really related to adoptive mother? How would I know? I'm afraid that no one but those who were directly involved know what happened more than 200 years ago. Yang Kai smiled lightly, but upon seeing the worried look on Shanqing Luo's face, his brow furrowed and he couldn't help asking, "What are you worried about?" Shanqing Luo slowly shook her head and with a forced smile said, "Nothing. Right, you must be careful of that Tian. I heard that you had a little conflict with him in Shimmering Moon City. Tian is incredibly prideful, so after offending him, he will never forgive you. Don't worry, he can't do anything to me." Yang Kai smiled proudly. The two continued chatting for some time before Shanqing Luo got up and left. "Junior brother, what are we going to do next?" Xianing Chang asked softly after Shanqing Luo was gone. "I haven't figured that out yet." Yang Kai smiled awkwardly. He had been trying his best to enter the palace to see how Shanqing Luo was doing. So now that he was certain she was doing well and learned just how high her status was, he naturally relaxed. "Then do you want to take elder sister Qing Luo away?" Xianing Chang asked. "I don't know, but I think it's best if we see what she wants first. In fact, I think it would be best for her to remain here. After all, Monster Emperor Star's environment is extremely beneficial to her cultivation and future development. N. Xianxia gently nodded. After hearing about Ba He, she immediately understood that if Yang Kai really insisted on taking Shanqing Luo away, it would be difficult. No one knew whether the death of that human woman who Ba He fell in love with had anything to do with Red Moon Tribal Lord. But if it really was the result of Red Moon Tribal Lord's secret machinations, Xianxia understood why Shanqing Luo showed a worried look just now. She was clearly afraid that history would repeat itself, but with Yang Kai as the victim this time. For the future of her adopted daughter, Red Moon Tribal Lord would not mind the death of a single human man. However, since we're already here, we should do our best to acquire as many unique materials as possible. Yang Kai said while looking towards Xianxia with a smile. We'll need to rely on you for this, little senior sister. Shanqing Luo left the guest room before taking Bai Luo straight to Qi Yu's private palace. Shanqing Luo was highly regarded by Qi Yu and was being cultivated as her future successor, so no one would dare to stop her from walking around in the palace. All the monster race cultivators who saw her bowed to show their respect when she passed by them. Arriving outside Qi Yu's chambers, Shanqing Luo found a man with a bear-like waist and strong, burly back, giving him an impressive stature like an iron tower. This man was standing outside the Qi Yu's palace with a furrowed brow as he leaned forward slightly, as if listening to something stealthily. Yu Xiong! Shanqing Luo walked up and shouted. Hearing the shout, Yu Xiong quickly turned around and put a finger to his lips. What are you doing acting all sneaky in front of adoptive mother's residence? You'd best be careful not to get caught or adoptive mother will certainly punish you. Shanqing Luo frowned, staring at him as she reprimanded him. Senior Ba He is being tortured inside. Listen. Yu Xiong pointed inside and gossiped with an interested expression on his face. Shanqing Luo was surprised at first, but after listening carefully, she could hear a series of terrible cries from inside the palace. Shanqing Luo couldn't help paling slightly as she asked in surprise, does that mean adoptive mother refuses to forgive Senior Ba He? Although she had never met Ba He and her situation were somewhat similar, so if Red Moon Tribal Lord refused to let off Ba He, then her and Yang Kai's future prospects would certainly be dim. Ba He's experience and situation were something Shanqing Luo could learn from to help predict her own future, so it was only natural for her to become nervous when she heard the screams Ba He was making from being tortured inside. It was as if Shanqing Luo could see Yang Kai being tortured by her adoptive mother. I don't know. Adoptive mother has always been amiable and seldom gets angry. Most of the time she will only warn, instruct, or reprimand when someone makes a mistake, rather than punishing them severely. Senior Ba He being tortured so miserably this time must be because adoptive mother is truly enraged. Yu Xiong quickly waxed as he continued to perk up his ears to spy on what was happening inside. Shanqing Luo's expression, of course, darkened even more upon hearing this as the worries in her heart grew slightly stronger, and she began thinking hard about what she should say when she met with her adoptive mother. Shanqing Luo and Yu Xiong listened to the sounds inside the palace for more than an hour before the screams gradually subsided. Even a monster race master with steel nerves like Yu Xiong could not help feeling somewhat anxious at this moment. The door of the palace opened suddenly, and a figure staggered out from it. This man was covered in blood and his aura was quite chaotic, seemingly not far from death. Shanqing Luo's eyes shrank. She could see at a glance that this man should be Ba He. After all, the powerful aura of a third-order origin returning realm master still lingered around his body. It seemed that her adoptive mother had been extremely angry this time, and it wasn't yet clear whether she had forgiven Senior Ba He. Senior, are you okay? Yu Xiong walked over and supported Ba He. Ah, I'm fine, at least I won't die. Ba He waved his hand slowly, as if he didn't even have the strength to speak. Yu Xiong opened his mouth but did not know how to comfort him. Ba He suddenly raised his head and looked at Shanqing Luo. As an old master with vast experience reading others, the moment he saw her, his eyes could not help lighting up. Even his sluggish aura seemed to recover somewhat at that moment. Gently nodding, Ba He asked, You should be young Lady Shan, right? Qing Luo greets Senior. Shanqing Luo elegantly bowed. Young Lady Shan is too polite. Good. The monster race has finally found a decent talent, Bahi said with a light smile. This old master acted too willfully in the past and failed to live up to the expectations of Lady Tribal Lord. I hope you will not disappoint her as well. Junior will remember Senior's teachings, Shan Qingluo said softly, with a complex expression. Go in. Lady Tribal Lord is waiting for you. Bahi waved his hand before forcing his weak body forward step by step at a slow pace. Shan Qingluo and Yu Xiong stared at the fading figure of Bahi and could not help sighing. This future star of the monster race, the first master under the Origin King realm, had been punished so severely by their adoptive mother. Is that Qingluo? Come in. From inside the palace, Qi Yu's voice called out. Shan Qingluo could not help feeling anxious hearing this call, but quickly bit her red lip to brace herself and walked inside. I'll head back first. Yu Xiong seemingly thought out loud before turning around to flee. Yu Xiong, you get in here too. Qi Yu's tender shout rang out. Yu Xiong's neck shrank as he put down his already lifted foot. An expression like his father and mother had just died filling his face, as he reluctantly followed Shan Qingluo. I should have run away sooner. Yu Xiong regretted deeply to himself. Inside the spacious and brightly lit palace, a beautiful woman in a long dress stood quietly, her expression calm and composed. This beautiful woman had a mature, proud figure and a slender waist. There were no energy fluctuations around her at all, as if she was an ordinary mortal that had never cultivated before. She seemed to have been born extremely beautiful, with red lips like the most glamorous of rubies that flashed a seductive luster and frost-white skin that gave off a cool glow. In terms of attractiveness to men, she wasn't inferior to Shan Qingluo at all. However, she lacked the kind of innate charm Shan Qingluo naturally radiated, instead possessing a noble aura that was many times greater. It was hard to imagine that such a beautiful woman was one of Monster Emperor Star's 10 great tribal lords, and the adoptive mother of Shan Qingluo and Yu Xiong, Qi Yu. After the siblings came in, they first greeted Qi Yu, and after receiving Qi Yu's nod, they sat down cautiously. Have you made appropriate arrangements for the alchemy grandmaster that arrived here from Shimmering Moon City? Qi Yu asked casually. Reporting to adoptive mother, everything has been arranged. Does adoptive mother wish to see her immediately? Shan Qingluo looked at Qi Yu and asked. There's no hurry. Since she can refine an origin-grade pill that formed pill clouds, she is indeed somewhat extraordinary, but compared to her, I am more interested in the human man who came with her. I've been hearing some incredible rumors about him. Qingluo, is there anything you want to tell me? Qi Yu turned to look at Shan Qingluo elegantly. Shan Qingluo's tender body trembled as she hurriedly got up, knelt down on the ground, grit her teeth, and pleaded, Adoptive mother, please show mercy that man. Why are you acting so nervously? Adoptive mother will not eat him. Get up first and then we'll talk. Qi Yu stretched out her hand and brought Shan Qingluo to her feet. Seeing that Qi Yu didn't seem to be angry, Shan Qingluo couldn't help feeling relieved and her nervous mood gradually calmed down. Tell me, are the rumors I heard true or false? Qi Yu continued to ask. They're true, Shan Qingluo replied through gritted teeth. Oh? So that human is really the object of your affection. Qi Yu laughed softly. Yes. What's so great about him? Why does even a woman like you seem so deeply in love with him? Yu Xiong said that he is just a boy toy that depends on women for food. What's wrong? Yu Xiong is just spouting nonsense. Shan Qingluo shot Yu Xiong a vicious look, to which the latter shrank his head, touched his chin, and looked up at the sky. Tell me about him then. What is it about him that causes you to never be able to forget him? Qi Yu seemed to be interested and asked carefully. Adoptive daughter can't explain well. Shan Qingluo smiled shyly. In front of a powerful existence like Red Moon Tribal Lord, her demon queen aura was completely suppressed. We met when he was very weak. At that time, adoptive daughter was just an immortal Ascension boundary 9th stage cultivator, while he had only reached the true element boundary. That is quite a big gap. Qi Yu raised her brow. But he seems to have arrived at the second order origin returning realm now. Does that mean he's able to match your cultivation speed? Knowing this, Qi Yu finally showed a hint of surprise. Shan Qingluo's cultivation pace was extremely fast, So Qiyu seeing this human man not inferior to her adopted daughter in this regard came as a bit of a shock. And I don't know where he has been over the years or what he has done, but after accidentally crossing paths in the Emperor Garden recently, he seems to have made a special trip to Monster Emperor Star to find me. He has also been to the Emperor Garden? Qiyu became more interested. And, at that time, adoptive daughter joined forces with him and fought a group of people from Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. But before we had time to talk, the Emperor Garden closed. Humph. Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. Qiyu snorted coldly, a trace of disdain flashing across her pretty face. Since you collaborated with him in battle, tell me, how strong is he? This? Shanqing Luo looked embarrassed. You don't know? Qiyu's face sank. Please forgive me, adoptive mother. The battle did not last long, and adoptive daughter was not able to observe much, but adoptive daughter is certain he is not weak. Qiyu laughed softly and declared, since you are so certain, I can give him a chance. Although it is admirable that he came to Monster Emperor Star to find you, he is still just a human after all. Moreover, he seems to have another woman. How can this Qiyu's daughter share a man with other women? Compose yourself for now. As for his worth, I will test it. If he really has the skill to win my approval, then I will not oppose your relationship with him. But if he is nothing but an embroidered pillow, I will personally kill him. After speaking, Qiyu looked at Shanqing Luo, thinking she could see this adoptive daughter of hers panic and plead for mercy. But instead all she saw was a look of joy on Shanqing Luo's face. You have that much confidence in him? Qiyu was surprised. Although I have not seen him in several dozen years, he is a man who is able to create miracles. So adoptive daughter believes he will not let me down and will win adoptive mother's approval. Shanqing Luo quickly said. Sure, since you think so, I will act freely. Qiyu nodded slightly, satisfied with Shanqing Luo's attitude as she shouted in a low voice. Yu Xiong. Yes. Yu Xiong quickly got up. I leave this task to you. Test that little bastard's depths. If he is just an ordinary human, kill him quickly so he does not become an eyesore. Qiyu waved her hand. Yes. Yu Xiong replied in a deep voice as his eyes flashed fiercely. You may leave. The brother and sister pair then left Qiyu's palace. After exiting, Yu Xiong wore a look of excitement as he rolled up his sleeves, looking like he was going to start a fight immediately. Although he thought Yang Kai was an interesting guy, even daring to call him older brother, he was still a human. While having another woman, this boy toy was still coveting his little sister. A toad lusting after swan meat if Yu Xiong ever saw one. Now that he obtained Qiyu's instructions, he wanted to immediately test out Yang Kai. In any case, he could think about more complicated things after first beating him up. Yu Xiong! Shanqing Luo suddenly shouted. Yu Xiong quickly glanced over at her. Shanqing Luo's beautiful eyes flashed a cold light as she glared at him and declared, if you dare act against him personally, I'll make you suffer for it. Yu Xiong was dumbfounded, a gloomy look filling his face. Little sister, older brother was assigned this task by adoptive mother. I cannot disobey adoptive mother's instructions. I don't care, you can't act yourself. If you do, you won't have a little sister in the future. After saying so, she did not give Yu Xiong a chance to speak and flew off immediately. Little sister. Great aunt. Yu Xiong called from behind, but no matter how he shouted, he could not get any response. He suddenly felt he had received a very awkward assignment. After staying at the palace for 3 days, Red Moon Tribal Lord finally summoned Xianxia. As an alchemy grandmaster who refined a pill that formed pill clouds, Xianxia was worthy of such an audience. As for Yang Kai, Qiyu did not take him to heart and had no plans to meet with him. Qiyu's impression of Xianxia was particularly good. This human woman was docile and kind, with pure, limpid eyes. Not only did she have a good cultivation level, she also had a profound knowledge in alchemy. When she summoned Xianxia, Qiyu specially asked several well-known alchemists in the palace to come test Xianxia's skills. The result greatly satisfied Qiyu. With regards to alchemy, Xianxia had the demeanor and style of a master that was not inferior to the old white-haired men who had devoted their entire lives to alchemy. The alchemy competition held on the spot was also won by Xianxia overwhelmingly. Qiyu was incredibly pleased with this talent and offered extremely favorable terms to hire Xianxia, allowing her to live comfortably in the palace while providing alchemy services for her. If not for Xianxia's young age and lack of reputation, the identity of the palace's chief alchemist would likely have immediately changed hands. Xianxia's living conditions improved dramatically as she was granted her own independent palace, as well as several young and beautiful maidservants to take care of her daily needs. All she needed to do was relax and perform alchemy for Qiyu. All of this was in line with Yang Kai's expectation. Grandmaster Xia, these materials have been allocated to you by Lady Tribal Lord. Master hopes to see the finished pills within a month. Outside Xianxia's private chambers, a maidservant in green handed her a space ring. I'll take it. Yang Kai smiled as he stuck out his hand. The green-clothed maid frowned slightly, seemingly displeased. But she did not refuse and gently placed the space ring into Yang Kai's hand. Yang Kai divine sense swept the contents of the space ring before snorting lightly. Why are there so few materials? So few? There are enough materials for 40 origin-grade pills inside. The green-clothed maid frowned. And, truly too few? Can you bring more materials? Yang Kai asked. I can, but the other grandmasters in the palace only use so many materials per month. If any more are brought, there won't be enough time to completely refine them. How can those people compare to my little senior sister? Yang Kai spat disdainfully. Go bring more materials. The more the better. The green-clothed maid looked over at Xianxia awkwardly. Honestly, she did not like Yang Kai very much. The rumor was that Yang Kai was a boy toy who only relied on women for food. His poor reputation had already propagated throughout the entire palace. No woman would hold a good impression of such a man. Worse, while he had already deceived this female alchemy grandmaster, he wasn't satisfied and was now stretching out his claws towards young Lady Shan Qingluo. Sadly, Lady Qingluo's eyes seemed to have been blinded somehow, and she was unable to see through the true shameless nature and corrupt soul of this man. Inside the palace, almost everyone was sighing for Shan Qingluo, feeling like a beautiful flower was willingly being planted in cow dung, eliciting strong feelings of indignation. Now, listening to Yang Kai boast so shamelessly, the green-clothed maid's already poor impression of him dropped further. However, Lady Tribal Lord seemed quite taken with this new alchemy grandmaster, so it wasn't easy for the maid to refuse. As a last resort, the green-clothed maid sought Xianxia's opinion on the matter. Do as junior brother says, Xianxia said softly. If Lady Tribal Lord asks, you can just say I requested the materials, she won't disagree. Yes. The green-clothed maid nodded helplessly. By the way, those grandmasters in the palace, what is their average probability of success in alchemy? Yang Kai asked suddenly. 20%. The green-clothed maid replied indifferently. For every 10 sets of materials, they succeed in refining pills twice. Understood, many thanks. Yang Kai smiled and cupped his fists. The green-clothed maid looked at him seriously, as if she wanted to say something, but after hesitating for a while, she couldn't vocalize her thoughts. Nodding to Xianxia, she simply turned and left. That girl doesn't seem to like me very much. Yang Kai looked at her back and laughed dryly. He understood why the other party was giving him such a disgusted look, but he didn't take it to heart. Junior brother, isn't this a little improper? Xianxia looked at Yang Kai worriedly. How is it improper? These are origin-grade materials. In the end, their value isn't low. If we do this, isn't it equivalent to stealing materials from Red Moon Tribal Lord? Xianxia felt a little uneasy and guilty. That's not right. Yang Kai shook his head. Think about it, little senior sister. That girl just now said that when the other grandmasters in the palace refine origin-grade pills, the probability of them succeeding is only about 20%. That means that 80% of the materials they use will be wasted. But little senior sister, you're different. If you put in your best effort, even if you cannot reach a 100% success rate, you will at least reach 80 to 90%. Even if you occasionally fail, it would be inconsequential. In the end, as long as you turn over 30% of the finished pills, Red Moon Tribal Lord will already make a massive profit. At the same time, we'll gain some benefits as well. This is a good deal for everyone involved. Although I understand what Junior Brother is saying, I still feel like there's something wrong with acting like this. Xianxia pursed her red lips lightly. Right now, she felt like she and her junior brother were behaving like thieves. But since Yang Kai had asked her to do this, Xianxia would not refuse. The two quickly dedicated their full effort to alchemy. To Xianxia, alchemy was cultivation. To her, alchemy was a kind of enjoyment rather than laborious work. On top of that, she was now a first-order origin returning realm cultivator, and after studying the true alchemy enlightenment scripture, her attainments in alchemy had grown significantly. In addition, the last time she successfully refined a pill with pill clouds in shimmering Moon City, she had gained a much deeper understanding of the alchemic way. Yang Kai couldn't help admiring her talent in the field of alchemy. Raw materials were transformed into finished products in her hands at an extremely efficient rate. Yang Kai didn't remain idle either, as he focused on experimenting with the refining method left in the true alchemy enlightenment scripture that would lead to one set of materials producing more than one pill. It was conceivable that if he succeeded in this experiment, it would have a profound impact on the entire starfield's alchemic way. This would no doubt be a groundbreaking development. Unfortunately, Yang Kai didn't have any clues as to how to succeed yet and could only continue refining pills while studying and comprehending the true alchemy enlightenment scripture. The senior sister and junior brother pair working together consumed the trivial 40 sets of materials in just a few days. A few days later, when the green-clothed maid came over again and received a bottle with 12 pills inside of it, her eyes filled with shock. It had only been a few days, yet this young, beautiful alchemy grandmaster had really finished refining all the materials she had been given. On top of that, the number of pills she had refined was 10% higher than the other grandmasters in the palace. The green-clothed maid could hardly believe her eyes. If it weren't for the pills actually matching the previously delivered materials, she would have suspected that Xianxia had simply handed her previously refined pills. No wonder Lady Tribal Lord valued her so much. She was worthy of it. Thinking about this, the maid even more felt that Yang Kai was an eyesore. This boy toy was truly thick-skinned, sitting around all day doing nothing, forcing this innocent girl to let him remain by her side, as if he was afraid that someone would try to snatch her away from him. However, this couldn't be blamed on him entirely. After all, with no real ability of his own, and a need to rely on a woman just to feed himself, of course this boy toy would constantly be on guard, as a woman like Grandmaster Xia would surely have many suitors. Grandmaster Xia, there are 100 sets of origin-grade pill materials inside this space ring. Lady Tribal Lord has also said that if you want more materials, just ask any of the maids and the palace will supply herbs to you unconditionally. The green-clothed maid respectfully handed over the new set of materials. Thank you. Xianxia smiled gently. Just place them down over there somewhere. Yang Kai gestured lightly. The green-clothed maid shot him a ferocious look, put down the space ring in her hands, hesitated for a moment, then suddenly shouted, "Please be nicer to Master Xia, you shameless boy toy." After saying so, she left angrily. Yang Kai wore a bewildered look as he knit his brow. Why did she feel the need to scold me? I didn't do anything to her. Xianxia giggled pleasantly before saying lightly, "Don't worry about what others think. They just don't know how good you are, junior brother. It's fine as long as I know." Yang Kai's heart warmed. Xianxia lowered her head and whispered softly, "In fact, it's better like this. I'm really afraid that more women will come to know how good you are. Since little senior sister has said so, then I'll have to trouble you to take care of this boy toy." Yang Kai laughed. Xianxia's face reddened as the words boy toy always reminded her of some embarrassing memories. Red Moon territory was among the strongest 3 of the 10 territories on Monster Emperor Star and was rich in natural wealth. What's more, since this was Monster Emperor Star, there were countless monster beasts, so the palace did not lack for herbs and other alchemy materials, including monster beast parts and monster cores. No matter how many materials Xianxia asked for, the palace was able to satisfy her. In order to gain as many benefits as possible from this place, Yang Kai and Xianxia spared no effort to refine pills. After receiving a batch of materials, they would refine 30% of them into pills that were handed over the green-clothed maid when she came to deliver the next batch. The remaining 70% went straight to Yang Kai's pockets. There were not many opportunities to freely obtain so many high-grade alchemy materials, so how could Yang Kai let this one pass? In truth, the amount didn't matter too much to Yang Kai as he was already an Origin King-grade alchemist. Unless he used Origin King-grade materials, there was no way for him to increase his alchemy level. No matter how many pills he refined, the only thing that would improve was his refining proficiency. But Xianxia was different. She needed a huge base of materials to perform alchemy in order to improve her cultivation. As the Star Master of Tongxian Realm, little senior sister was extremely eager to improve her cultivation so she could restore vitality to her homeland. These materials obtained from the palace would become the stepping stones for Xianxia's growth. Xianxia's outstanding performance also made Qi Yu very happy. Although there were several other Origin-grade alchemists in the palace, none of them were anywhere near as fast or efficient as Xianxia. It could be said that all the rest of the Origin-grade alchemists in the palace put together were less useful than Xianxia. Qi Yu felt that if Xianxia could work for the palace for 10 years, Red Moon territory would be able to create another 100 Origin-returning realm masters. This wasn't an exaggeration. If, over 10 years, the pills refined by Xianxia were given to talented monster race cultivators, those talents would definitely grow at a remarkable pace. Qi Yu favored Xianxia greatly, almost granting any request she made without the slightest delay, which naturally made it easier for Yang Kai to plunder materials. He was already considering whether he should begin asking for Origin King-grade materials from Qi Yu. An Origin King-grade alchemist had never appeared on Monster Emperor Star. This also meant that there must be a large amount of Origin King-grade herbs stored in the palace. Yang Kai had discreetly asked Shan Qingluo about this matter, and learned that Qi Yu had a special storehouse where many precious materials were preserved, including those at the Origin King-grade, a fact that excited Yang Kai greatly. Inside their residence, Xianxia was focusing on alchemy, while Yang Kai was thinking about how to obtain the Origin King-grade herbs from Qi Yu's storehouse. Obviously, there was only one option: to use the stone puppet. The stone puppet could move silently through the earth, and because of its unique physiology, it was extremely difficult for people to detect any trace of it. When Yang Kai was a guest at Shadowed Star's colored glass sect, he had used the stone puppet to steal a large amount of Thousand Illusion colored glass, which was subsequently used as a primary material for refining the Origin King-grade starship. However, this situation was somewhat different from the one back then. Although Thousand Illusion colored glass mountain was tightly protected by colored glass sect, Yang Kai still had an opportunity to pilfer it, as the masters of colored glass sect never imagined such a strange creature existed, which could extract Thousand Illusion colored glass right under their noses. But the level of defense around Qi Yu's storehouse would obviously vastly exceed anything protecting colored glass mountain. Although the stone puppet had many useful abilities, its intelligence wasn't very high, and if Yang Kai sent it out rashly, it would very likely alert others to its presence. He had to do this himself. Concluding so, Yang Kai didn't hesitate anymore, stretched out his hand, and summoned out the golden stone puppet. This stone puppet was Xiao Zhao's only kin, but when it was born, its soul failed to form properly for some reason, making the originally low sentience creature completely brain-dead. However, as a result, it became the perfect vessel for Yang Kai to use as an avatar. It had absorbed a lot of pure golden blood from Yang Kai, so its color had turned pale gold. Looking at the golden stone puppet in front of him, Yang Kai gently nodded before extracting his soul clone from his knowledge sea and sending it into it. In the next moment, the sluggish eyes of the golden stone puppet regained some of their light, becoming animated and intelligent. Yang Kai closed his eyes and his expression changed slightly. No matter how many times he experienced this, it still felt extremely mysterious. By inserting his soul clone into the golden stone puppet, he transformed it into a physical avatar, making Yang Kai feel as if he had been split in two. Not only could he feel all the emotions and sensations of his own body, but he could also see and hear everything the golden stone puppet did at the same time. It was a strange and inexplicable feeling. Yang Kai didn't rush to act, but instead tried to control the movements of the golden stone puppet with his soul clone. Only after familiarizing himself with this peculiar body did he suddenly burrow into the ground. The seemingly solid earth was no more a barrier to the golden stone puppet than air was, like a fish in water. Additionally, its peculiar body was able to perfectly camouflage itself inside the ground. No one inside the palace noticed its presence. Regarding the location of the storehouse, Yang Kai had also asked Shan Qingluo, so there was no need for him to search randomly. Estimating the distance and location, it only took a moment for the golden stone puppet to arrive beneath the storehouse. Yang Kai quietly released his divine sense then and spied upward. Unsurprisingly, even deep below the storehouse, there seemed to be a barrier protecting it. When Yang Kai's avatar's divine sense swept the area, it quickly encountered an invisible resistance that impeded it from advancing any further. This invisible resistance didn't seem to be very strong, so with a furrow of his brow, Yang Kai slightly increased the output of his divine sense, condensing his spiritual energy and shelling the space in front of him. This was just a simple test, and Yang Kai was doing his best to control both the power he used and the area he targeted, not daring to act too forcefully. He thought such a small test wouldn't attract anyone's attention. However, when his pulse of divine sense came into contact with the invisible barrier, a terrifying aura suddenly spread out from somewhere in the palace. The strength of this aura caused everyone in the palace to tremble. From the void, a pair of invisible eyes seemed to open and look down at the entire palace, observing everyone's movements. No one dared to act rashly under the gaze of these eyes. The powerful aura swept forth, but soon after it scanned the entire palace, it receded and disappeared. Many people fell to the ground as sweat dripped from their foreheads. Even the origin-returning realm masters inside the palace felt their bodies go weak and limp at this moment. What was Lady Tribal Lord looking for? I don't know. Could it be someone did something to anger her inside the palace? Confusion and discussion abounded. Everyone knew that the powerful aura belonged to Red Moon Tribal Lord, as only she could silence the entire palace with a single thought. Yang Kai was also taken aback. He never expected Qi Yu's reaction to be so fast. If it weren't for the unique physique of the stone puppet, which allowed it to perfectly blend in with the surrounding land, his avatar would definitely have been exposed. After such an experience, Yang Kai didn't dare have any ideas about the storehouse and quickly and quietly withdrew his avatar. Inside Qi Yu's chambers, her brow furrowed lightly as a look of suspicion covered her face. Strange, the barrier of the storehouse was obviously just touched, so why couldn't I find anything? She also didn't understand. No one could act presumptuous in her domain, and no one could avoid her sight. So she simply concluded that the barrier around the storehouse had fallen into disrepair after such a long time and some kind of fault had caused the reaction just now. Thinking so, she no longer tried to investigate, instead flashing an interested smile as she muttered to herself softly. Yu Xiong seems to have used his head this time, using a borrowed knife to do the deed. This queen must have a look at what kind of skill this human boy has. Saying so, she quietly released her divine sense towards the palace where Xianing Chong was staying to observe the movements there. Inside the palace, Yang Kai had just taken the golden stone puppet back into his black book space when suddenly he turned to stare towards a certain spot with a frown. At this moment, he actually felt like someone was spying on him. But even after inspecting with divine sense carefully, he found nothing. Could it be that he was exposed somehow in the incident just now and Qi Yu was now monitoring him? Yang Kai's face instantly turned black. Oh, this little boy actually sensed something? Qi Yu said in surprise. With her powerful second-order origin king cultivation, it should have been a simple task for her to observe a second-order origin returning realm boy without his knowledge. But Yang Kai's glance towards the void just now clearly indicated he had noticed her prying eyes. However, that was his limit, as it was certainly impossible for him to really perceive her divine sense. He should only be suspicious right now. Qi Yu could infer this from Yang Kai's reactions. Things have become interesting, Qi Yu suddenly thought to herself. Yang Kai frowned as he sat in place. secretly feeling the situation become complicated. After a moment, though, his expression calmed down and he pretended that nothing had happened, closed his eyes, and began adjusting his breathing. Soon after, Yang Kai heard voices coming from outside. "I'm sorry, two young lords, but you cannot go in. This is the private residence of Grandmaster Xia. Lady Tribal Lord has ordered that no one may disturb Grandmaster Xia while she is performing alchemy." Yang Kai's expression changed as he heard this voice. He instantly recognized that the speaker was the same green-clothed maid that came to deliver herbs to Xia Ningchong. However, at this moment, she seemed to be trying to prevent someone from approaching the palace. "This young lord knows this is the palace of alchemy Grandmaster Xia. That's why he has come. If not for this, do you think this young lord would come to this remote place? Stand aside. This young lord has something to discuss with that Grandmaster Xia." A rough voice sounded loudly. "Two young lords, please reconsider. Lady Tribal Lord has already issued strict orders. Please do not embarrass this servant." The green-clothed maid begged while again mentioning Chi Yu's name, using both soft and hard methods. "Scram!" The previous speaker shouted angrily. "Don't try to use Senior Chi Yu's name to suppress this young lord. If Senior Chi Yu has a problem, this young lord will explain himself to her. Not you. How dare a mere servant try to block this young lord's way? Little lady, you should give way. This young lord came here with Brother Shuelian this time to request Grandmaster Xia refine a pill, not to intrude upon her privacy. However, Brother Shuelian's temper is a bit bad, so if we've offended you, this young lord will apologize on his behalf." Another voice sounded. Yang Kai suddenly sneered. The owner of this voice was someone he was familiar with, young Master Wicked Eyes Mi Tian. Since entering the palace, Yang Kai had not seen him again. But a person with such high pride would definitely not let the matter in Shimmering Moon City drop. Shan Qingluo had also reminded him to be wary of Mi Tian's revenge. His intentions for showing up at this time were clearly not good. But who was the other person? Hearing Mi Tian calling him Brother Shuelian, it seemed the other party's status was not low. Yang Kai instantly became curious. Request alchemy from Grandmaster Xia? The green-clothed maid froze for a moment before quickly shaking her head. That would be inappropriate. Grandmaster Xia is a talent Lady Tribal Lord highly favors. Without the permission of Lady Tribal Lord, she cannot perform alchemy for others. Not appropriate? The monster race master named Shuelian sneered. Inappropriate how? She's just a trivial human woman. This young lord asking her to perform alchemy is her honor. How could she refuse? If she dares say no, this young lord will immediately kill her. The green-clothed maid turned pale in fright. Although she was afraid of the ferocity of the monster race master named Shuelian, she still stood firmly in front of him and prevented him from entering the palace. "I'll give you 3 breaths time. If you don't give way by then, be prepared to die. Even if this young lord kills a trivial maidservant, Senior Chi you won't care. Think carefully before you decide." Shuelian glared coldly at the green-clothed maid, a fierce and violent light flashing across his eyes. "Little lady, you'd best step aside. Your delicate skin and tender flesh will certainly not look good if it's ripped apart." Mi Tian still maintained a gentle smile as he persuaded the green-clothed maid, his eyes flashing a wicked and enchanting light. When she made contact with these eyes, the green-clothed maid's vision blurred and the look of struggle on her face gradually smoothed, a faint blush appearing on her cheeks as she gently and shyly nodded before backing down. With a cold snort, Shuelian stretched out his hand and shoved the maid further away before taking a big step forward towards the palace. Mi Tian smiled and followed behind him. When the two were less than 10 meters from the palace, however, the front door suddenly opened and Yang Kai walked out, closing the door behind him before sweeping his eyes across Shuelian and Mi Tian indifferently. Shuelian and Mi Tian both stopped at the same time, the former staring at Yang Kai disdainfully. The latter's eyes narrowed, however, as a look of hatred and dread flashed across their depths. He would never forget Yang Kai's terrifying performance back in Shimmering Moon City. This was an opponent he had no choice but to take seriously.